Okay, we're ready to get started, so if everybody would take their seats. Welcome to coming to the broadband competition. Okay. All right. So welcome, and our first speaker today to welcome us to the competition will be Ty Parsons, Mayor of Maryville.
Thanks, Joe. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ty Parsons. I'm the mayor of Maryville. And so welcome. We're glad that you are here. You may not know, if this is your first time to Maryville, you may not realize that we're actually not as rural as it looks. We actually are in the city. That Maryville proper is a few miles to the west of us. But this is Mozingo Lake out here. This is our primary water supply for the city, and was supported by the city and the county several years ago when we built this beautiful place. The building that you're sitting in, the Mozingo Conference Center, was supported by the taxpayers of the city of Maryville, and it's a relatively new facility. It's a beautiful space. I hope that you'll enjoy your time while you're here. This place is booked pretty much all summer long with weddings. You wouldn't believe about every Saturday and Sunday the number of weddings that we have out here, golf tournaments, all sorts of really cool things. And so it's a fantastic facility. One of those things that really makes Maryville special. And so we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you get to see this place. And we're glad that you're here to talk about such an important issue about broadband. So I've got some notes that I was given, so I'm going to give you some introductions here, and then I'll get out of your way. So again, thank you for attending the Public-Private Partnership Broadband Business Plan Competition. I appreciate all of you being here again to support this event and the work that's been done so far to increase broadband in Northwest Missouri. I'll pause here. So my day job is to work as the grants coordinator at Northwest Missouri State University. Before that, I was the executive director of the Northwest Missouri Regional Council of Governments, which is our sponsor for the event today. As director, and actually before that as a planner with the Regional Planning Commission, we worked on broadband quite a bit. I remember when I first started there at our office on West 3rd Street in Maryville, in order to get the internet to work, you had to flip a switch, and you either had fax or you had internet. You didn't have both, and you only had one computer at a time. So how things have changed, and I'm not that old. So we've made a great deal of progress already, but we know that there are many, many gaps still to go. And so this is a very important thing to me personally. Okay, back to my notes. Let's see. So I want to thank the Northwest Missouri Regional Council of Governments, Northwest Missouri State University, the City of Maryville, the University of Missouri System Universities, the UM System Office of Engagement, and MU Extension have all worked together to help make this event happen. So thank you. As a result of greater access to high-speed internet, more people can engage in online learning, which is near and dear to my heart as an employee of Northwest Missouri State University. That landscape has changed tremendously. And so we are forging ahead into that brand new system, and it's been tremendous. It's been such a great thing for our university and universities around the state. More people can engage in entrepreneurial activities, telehealth, and so many other opportunities in the digital area that were heightened by the COVID pandemic. Today we welcome teams. This is the cool part. Today we welcome teams from the University of Missouri System Universities, University of Missouri Kansas City, Missouri Science and Technology, and University of Missouri St. Louis, who have all created business plans to support broadband expansion in Northwest Missouri. I've lived here a long time. It's a long drive to any of those places. I am so glad that I drove 5 minutes this morning and not 5 hours. So thank you, especially for those of you that drove a very long ways to be here. The students of those groups will share their plans momentarily, and then we'll meet the judges that have critiqued their plans. After that, we'll hear from broadband resources and updates from key leaders representing the UM System, MU Extension, and the Missouri Broadband Office. So, my last order of business here is to recognize some very important people that have joined us this morning, some special guests. Tom Salisbury is in the back. Tom is with Senator Roy Blunt's office. Thank you, Tom, for being here. I've known Tom a long time in a couple of different capacities, so I'm glad you're here, Tom. Matt Berry's here, Representative Graves' office. Thank you for being here, Matt, from the Congressman's office. As an aside, if you went through the city of Maryville this morning, or if you're going to go through the city and you see some construction on South Main Street, that's in large part because of Congressman Graves and his support of the city of Maryville's couple of very large federal infrastructure grants and a brand new one that was just announced last week, a little bit, almost $6 million worth. And so thank you, Matt, thank you, Congressman Graves, for your assistance there. Missouri Representative Randy Railsback is right here in the front. You all need to know that Randy gave me my first job. When I was fresh out of college in 1998, Randy took a chance on me, on a 22-year-old kid, and I learned an awful lot from Randy. He started me on my path in my career, and I could never thank him enough. So thank you, Randy, for everything that you did for me. He's quite a guy. He's a representative over in the Trenton area, but has done really tremendous things for this state and tremendous things for me personally. So thank you, Randy. I think you're a pretty cool guy. We've got a couple of folks that are joining us on the live stream. Missouri Representative Lewis Riggs is on the live stream. Kim, you marked it out. Jeremy Heigl, Federal Reserve Bank, is on the live stream. Thanks for being here, Jeremy. This is a very important one. Interim President of Northwest Missouri State University, Dr. Clarence Green is in the house. Yeah. Dr. Clarence Green is my boss, so be nice to him. And Stacy Steffens, MU Extension Northwest Regional Director. Stacy? I don't know. She might be online. So that's the end of my notes. I think you all are awesome. Thank you for being here. I think you're going to have a great day, and I just wish you all the best. And come back to Maryville. Visit us. We're a cool town in a cool part of the state, and we would love to have you in the future. Come see a Bearcat game. Come check out everything that Maryville has to offer. And so we'd love to have you here. So I bet I'm supposed to introduce somebody now. Oh, it's on the back, isn't it? Okay. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Marshall Stewart, UM System Chief Engagement Officer and MU Vice Chancellor for Extension and Engagement. He must have a very long business card. Marshall is a champion of broadband expansion in Missouri and utilizing partnerships to help make that happen. Please welcome Marshall.
And thank you, Mayor. Thank you for having us. It's our pleasure to be here, and I know I've got a lot of colleagues here from the University of Missouri System. Mr. President, glad to meet you this morning. Thank you for letting us come into your territory and be a part here too. We are very excited to be here today, and thought I'd just take a moment here, and again, I want to express appreciation to a lot of people, but Allison Copeland is somewhere here. Allison's the big driver. That she works in our office, does a phenomenal job of kind of coordinating and bringing the broadband team together. We have a team of faculty from across the system that work on this, and some of them are right here. BJ's been such a great partner, and there's just so many pieces that have come together to make this happen. But I think it's important to note that I came to the University of Missouri 6 years ago, and one of the things that I traveled the state with Extension in particular is I saw this tremendous need. I mean, I would see the data and they say, oh, you're well connected, you got plenty of broadband. It's like, whoa, 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 you're not going where I'm going. You go out in some of these communities, you really begin to see it. And so with the great work of, again, the State Broadband Office that we have today and others, it became very clear that this was a big need. And so to the credit of our president, Moon Choi, he agreed to allow us to really go into this deeply. And that has created what you see today, the Broadband Resource Rail, the work at the University of Missouri System. John Phillips just came in, one of our former curators. Raise your hand, John. John was a curator when I arrived at the University of Missouri and was a great champion, continues to be, continues to show up and be a part of these kind of conversations. And all those people together is what makes this happen. And I want you to know today that the University of Missouri system, University of Missouri Columbia, UMSL, UMKC, and S&T all collectively are very committed to this work, because we realize that we'll never grow the economy like we want to in this state. We'll never drive educational access. We'll never cause health care to be accessible to every person in the state, regardless of zip code, if we don't figure this out. And I will tell you that it's one of the great things that we've seen is over the last 6 years, because of our legislators, Senator Blunt in particular, Congressman Graves in particular, there's been a lot of money come into this state for broadband expansion. In fact, they tell me we probably are among the top states per capita for money coming in to help expand that. And that's a credit to these guys. Let's give them a round of applause, because they've really brought it home. And you know, it's important to note it's not just going to be a federal piece, but it's federal, state, local government, partners coming together to make these things happen. You know, the digital resource guide that we have, the things that we put online, the work of the Regional Economic Council here coming together, it's all about people. You know, if you think about that, it doesn't matter if it's federal, local, state, regional, it's people coming together to create solutions to do this. And today, the solutions are going to come from the next generation, which I think is very exciting, because they're going to come in and really share with us their insights and what they believe can really be about the future. So again, I don't want to take too much time, but this is without a doubt, and I say it everywhere I've gone for now 6 years, if you take all the issues we face in this state, all the challenges, and you wrap them all up, you say, what's one thing you could do that would transform the economy, education, health, and all the things that are so important in our communities, agriculture, all the issues around the environment, everything you think about. If you were to wrap it all up, what's one thing you could do if you did that, it would trigger success in every other sector? It is broadband access. And not only broadband access, but high speed, at the best speed that allows people to upload, download, to not just take it to the farmhouse, as we say in agriculture, but take it to the farm. You know, it's okay to get it to the house, but you got to get it on the farm so we can use digital agriculture, so we can be better stewards of our land, so we can do those things that really bring greater economic growth, but also environmental stewardship to what our farmers want to do, for instance. So those are things that we have to think about. I think it's also important to note that some of us in this room, in particular our colleagues from Kansas City and St. Louis, come from larger metropolitan areas, and a lot of times we think, well, this is a rural issue. Let me be clear, this is a Missouri issue. There are areas in Kansas City and St. Louis, quite frankly, that are broadband deserts as well. Now, it may be different reasons, it may be different conditions, but it's not a rural issue. Yes, it is a rural issue, but it's not only a rural issue, it's a Missouri issue. And so it's exciting to us to come out to Maryville, Mayor, to be with you, to be a partner with you, to partner on anything we can. And I just want to say that openly, that as we go forward, if Northwest Missouri, if there's any way we can be helpful to you in what you're doing, I'll put us on the line publicly. We want to help. If there's anything we can do with our federal lawmakers to make it better, to figure out ways we can operate better, to convene people, to bring them together, we want to do it. If there's ways we can help locally with our regional folks or county folks, we got great extension personnel in all these counties that work across these regions. We want to do it. We got great faculty. We want to do it. It's about getting it done now. And I do think we're at a pivotal moment, not only in Missouri, but nationally, where a lot of things are beginning to line up to really make this certainly affordable and accessible to so many Americans. And that's what we really want, because it will do that next generation thing that we all want to do. So I'm going to stop there, say thank you again. I think I'll go back to Joe, is that right? Where'd he go? Oh, good, Tony. So let me bring him up. These guys have been great. UMKC has been a great partner. Tony's been wonderful, and as well as so many other people. So again, thank you for having us today. Look forward to the conversations, and thank you to our students for the great work that we know we're going to see over the next few minutes.
Good morning. I'm Tony Luppino. I'm a professor and the director of Entrepreneurship Programs at the UMKC School of Law. My boss is here today too, Dean Barbara Glesner-Fines from the law school, who I recall vividly, she and I took a trip to Columbia to meet with Vice Chancellor Stewart in July of 2019. He'd already been a steadfast supporter of the importance of high-speed internet, but throughout this whole process, with a very large team that's been assembled, he's been right on target, echoing constantly that internet, high-speed internet, affordable access to it and adoption of it is a tool. The outcomes are improved access to education, to healthcare, to economic development, and to everyone being able to prosper in our economies, including local economies. So he's been a great champion right along, and thank you for setting the stage here. This has very much been a team effort. So my job, I was asked to just give some background on how this competition developed, what you're going to see today, how the program is going to proceed, and then I do want to acknowledge the contributions by various sponsors of the event and participants in organizing it. So among the many team members are the Entrepreneurship Educators Network across the UM system. And today's competition is really borrowing from that branch of our collaboration. At the UMKC Block School of Management and the Rainier Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, we customarily have annual business plan competitions for startup ventures, for entrepreneurship. So it wasn't too big a leap to say, well, what we've got here with the gaps in internet service across the state that we're trying to address is a call for creativity and entrepreneurship. So why don't we take the same approach? We know that in a lot of areas there's going to have to be a public component to filling the financing gaps, and that's why this is called a public-private partnership, or P3 competition. That's what the students have been working on. Other key components of the team, and again, this is just a subset, include various people from MU Extension who have been working, and as you know, work in communities all across the state. They've been deeply involved in broadband in the development of the digitally connected community guide that you'll see on the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail platform that the system built. You're going to hear more about that later in the program. The vision for the guide came from Mark McCarty, he's an adjunct professor at the law school, but now also a senior consultant on the Broadband Initiative, Mark. And he's going to explain more about the guide later, which is a way for these initiatives to be community-driven and community-informed and actively engaged. And that's why it makes perfect sense for us to be here this morning, because the Northwest Missouri Regional Council of Governments adopted use of the guide. They've been working with Extension. You're going to hear more about the experience with that so far. So it was a quite logical place to start with this community to pilot this concept of a student competition to have creativity and solutions that can be used by the community. So that's why we're here. What did we ask the students to do? The judges know this, and I'm going to introduce the judges in a minute. Unlike a typical startup venture competition where you're getting a brand new idea from the presenter, this started with, here's a whole lot of information about this community, about the infrastructure circumstances, economic circumstances, things that have been developed through community surveys that the Regional Council of Governments did. So they were given a broad set of resources to start with, and it was kind of like in Apollo 13, where they threw all that stuff on the table, so you got to solve a problem using this. That was part of it, but we also said, go out and do further research yourself. They only had about 8 weeks, maybe 8.5 weeks from the time they got this big problem statement package to having to deliver a detailed written business plan that the 5 judges have all reviewed and scored, and that's part of the competition that'll lead to the awards later. And so it was really quite a lot of work within 8 weeks, and we commend all the students for the work they did, and you're going to hear summaries of it today. That's the presentation part of it, is to, using slides, do a summary of the real key elements of their business plan and why they see a solution there for affordable internet access and adoption in this community. You'll later on hear about the resources that were signaled earlier, and thank you again to Mayor Parsons for starting the program and laying that out, and for being here this morning. Here are the judges, and we're delighted with the panel of judges. So we have Kim Millward, who's with the Northwest Regional Council of Governments, who's been a driving force in organizing all of this and doing double duty, serving as a judge as well. Hank Niederhelm, who's with MoreNet. Many of you may know MoreNet is a university operation that, among many other things, is instrumental in getting high-speed internet to schools and libraries across the state, and deals regularly with ISPs, and is just a terrific part of the university. Missouri State Representative Randy Railsback, thank you for joining us today and being part of this whole effort. And the judging, by the way, these business plans were about 30 pages long. They had to read 3 of them. Everybody had to dig in and really do a good job going over those. Jeff Simon, who's the managing partner with the Kansas City office of the Hush Blackwell Law Firm, who we wanted to make sure we had. I didn't want to be the only lawyer in the room, so we wanted to make sure. No, Jeff is here because he, among other things, has served on the Civic Council in Kansas City and has been one of the strongest proponents of broadband in our community. And BJ Tanksley, who many of you know, and you'll hear from later in the program after the presentations, who is the director of the Office of Broadband Development for the state within the Department of Economic Development. So here's what's going to happen. The students are going to, each team, there are 3 teams presenting. The order was randomly selected. The teams are all interdisciplinary, meaning that somebody on the team or combinations of them have training in business, computer science, and/or engineering, and law. They're not necessarily from the same campus. It's not like 3 different teams necessarily from different campuses. In fact, with the beauty of high-speed internet, several of them have been on teams coordinating all this over the last few months online. They met last night for the first time in person and practiced a little bit here. So that's one of the, and the other thing we've asked the teams to do is they're allowed to say their names during the presentations, but not what campus they're from. That's just part of the fairness rules we have in the competition. You'll learn more about them later on. They can also, if it comes up in the presentation, talk about what they're studying, just not where. So I'll finish with just some thank yous for contributors to this. That includes faculty members, as Vice Chancellor Stewart said, from multiple campuses. In this case, we had Brian Boots, who's with the Rainier Institute at the Block School, teaches entrepreneurship there. Casey Canfield, who is an engineering professor, and systems engineering professor at Missouri Science and Technology. Mark McCarty, who I mentioned earlier. Alav Gupta, who's in computer science at UMSL at University of Missouri St. Louis. From System Office of Engagement, as Marshall pointed out, Allison Copeland, who's not only been involved in the organization of our teams and of this event, she's been actively involved in the work we actually do in the cross-system broadband initiative. And Joe Lear, who for many years was with MU Extension, now is a consultant on broadband to the university and is making sure that all the electronics work, because I'd be hopeless trying to do that. And then we have a student research assistant, Ben Gruber, who's going to help us with the scoring, getting the teams in and out. None of the teams can watch the other teams present, and he's going to be keeping time. All right, and we are going to keep them on time. So finally, I want to thank all of you who are here, but some special thank yous. One to the H&R Block Foundation, who has provided funding for the prizes you're going to hear about later, and for the travel that allowed the students, and as Mayor Parsons said, several of whom traveled quite a distance to be here and stay at the wonderful facility next door. This is set up perfectly for this. We'd also like to thank the city for making this space available, for providing it. It just lays out great. So I don't want to delay any further. I think that's the overview that I promised. What we're going to do now is ask Team 1 to stay in the room because they're up first. If the other 2 student teams would go in that room back there that has a sign that says soft room, I think. It's a nice gathering area. And Ben will come out and get team number 2 when we're done here. So we'll let team 1 come up and grab the microphone, get your slides. I think Joe's got them all set up. Thank you all again for being here today. Who wants the microphone?
Alrighty. Is the timer started? Do we know? Yes? Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sophia Hadley. This is John Welsh, and this is Daniel Foose, and we are team number 1. And our project that we're bringing to you is titled Mo Fiber, and we are hoping to close the broadband equity gap within the state of Missouri. So, our project is aimed at combating a few challenges. One of these is the infrastructure cost that is present, the lack of existing infrastructure, and also the lack of reliable service, all together creating a digital divide within the community. These are challenges that the community has distinctly pointed out within their survey. Through our project, we plan to pursue several public policy goals. One of the main ones is population retention and growth, which in a few of the counties, our project plans to not only reduce the amount of people fleeing the state, but also reverse negative GDP growth trends and population trends. We plan to increase the quality of life within the state of Missouri through several avenues. We also plan to increase emergency response systems and their reliability and access. Also, entrepreneurship ventures we are passionate about, and we hope that through this broadband, people will have the opportunity to further their lives and the lives of others. One other important aspect is telemedicine. We think that this is crucial during this time right now, and will continue to be as COVID has shown us. Okay.
So one of the things we had to look at, because like any project, this project has a finite amount of resources, funding, and time, even under ideal circumstances, is what do we say no to? That's any successful project, is what you say no to is literally as important as what you say yes to, sometimes more so. One of the first things we decided was no wireless interim. One of the problems with interim solutions at this scale, a 5-county scale, is they're never interim. These are permanent solutions. If you're going to build widespread wireless internet access, those towers don't just magically go away once you build out fiber. They're there forever. They have to be maintained forever, managed forever, funded forever, upgraded forever. So there was no way to really do an interim wireless solution. The cost of a wireless solution, regardless of implementation, regardless of technology used, is not small. That funding, the labor cost to implement that, the resources to implement that has to come from somewhere. And since we're dealing with two notoriously zero-sum items, namely money and time, especially time, there was no way to do both that we felt in an efficient way that would get the widest number of people connected the fastest. So we decided on fiber only for our project. It also helps keep the focus of the project really tight. To wax agile about it, this is our MVP. Our minimum viable product is fiber access to households and businesses and farms. In terms of deployment, there's already entities able to deploy large amounts of cable to households and businesses and farms with existing resources. Power co-ops, power companies. They have the equipment, the trucks, they have experience running cables, it's kind of what they do. They have a great day. They have the maps of every pole. They have accesses to the poles, to the conduits they need. They know where everything already needs to go. So working with those entities to actually lay the fiber to run the cable was obvious at the start. And that's going to be, we feel, the most efficient way to do it, since a lot of rural co-ops already want to do this anyways. They've already been building up the expertise, collecting the equipment, what have you, to get this done. So it's just a matter of taking advantage of existing resources that are ready to go now. I know in some counties, the electric co-ops are raring to go to get this done because they see it as a way to better serve their customers, the members of their co-op. In terms of operations and maintenance, by going fiber only and by limiting this, again, to connecting people to the internet, we're not talking about email services, web services, what have you. This is literally, here's the internet, here's the business, the farm, the household, and this is bridging that gap, making sure that they have fast, reliable, high-speed internet that's future-proof, and that's what this project is about. So this actually simplifies a great deal of things. For example, the individual network operations centers that you would need, you could literally have one per county to manage this, because again, this is just managing access. I'm in the comp sci program within the University of Missouri system. I have some work experience in the area. I know that you can have one network operations center managing most of a state with fiber. So managing just for a county, you do not need a lot of buildings built. As a matter of fact, there's a good chance there's already existing entities that have facilities that these could make use of. Because you're only talking about internet access, you don't need a great deal of servers. You're just talking switches, routers, firewalls, monitoring setups. All these are well-solved problems within the industry. It's just a matter of finding where to put them, setting up your main resources at that point. Your main expenditures tend to be OpEx in terms of power, HVAC, disaster recovery, business continuity, and these, again, the methods of dealing with this solve problems, have been for decades. In terms of cost, long-term cost, fiber right now, the current standards are 100 gigabit. The last version of the 100G standard was ratified about a year or so ago. The initial versions almost 10 years ago. 10 gigabit Ethernet standards have been in place since the early 2000s. So just by off-the-shelf fiber, you already have the ability to future-proof from 1 gig, which we viewed as our floor for everybody accessing, up to 100 gig without requiring new equipment, new fiber. You can lay that now, have that. So if an entity, say like the Kawasaki plant in town, they need more than 1 gig, they need 10 gig. That's available using existing technology. There's nothing new that needs to be, and once this fiber is run, you can go from 1 to 100G fairly easily. It's already future-proof out at least 2 decades, if not longer, especially in the residential section. Most residences, 1 to 2 gig is going to serve them well for a very long time to come. And if we get, which would be awesome, mind you, to where like you have a large farm that needs 10G, great, fiber's already there. You have that access. You have that bandwidth already available just to use now with existing technology. You don't need to wait for someone to run new cable. You don't need to wait for someone to, wait for a standard to be ratified. That exists today. So they're already set if they need more. If any entity in any of the 5 counties needs more than the basic access, that can be implemented without new resources, without new anything. That exists.
So this is a diagram of our project structure that our team proposed to use for the project. Sort of speaking generally about the structure, we wanted to make it as flexible as possible, which we view as needed for a project of this scope, and as diverse as the 5 counties are that we're addressing, we thought the flexibility was super important. The other side is our ability to align incentives through the use of contracts. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a second. But I want to go through each of the entities involved. So at the top, we have the government consortium, which can either be a single county government or a single local government entity, or, if possible, a collection of the county governments working together to kind of streamline things. The government will own the fiber infrastructure that has been built out by the project. This is important because it's going to give the community, citizens, other interested parties more control, more say over how the project is done. Another important part of that, though, is on property taxes. So property taxes on leasehold interests of property owned by a political subdivision is taxed, is assessed using a bonus value method, which it typically results in a lower property tax assessment, which could be helpful if the flexibility that is there. If an ISP were to lease directly from the government, their property tax liability could potentially be lower. So below the government is MoFiber, which is the special purpose vehicle that our project proposes to use. Their main goal is going to be to procure the funds necessary to build the infrastructure, contracting with the electric cooperatives and the ISP to really bring the project to life and really do most of the heavy lifting that has kind of prevented high-speed broadband access from being available in the area. MoFiber, so the MoFiber below them is the electric cooperative. The electric cooperatives, as John said earlier, are really in a unique position to be beneficial to our project, to provide the resources that they likely already have. They're going to contract through a concession agreement as well with the SPV. While that's going on, it's not an all or nothing. It doesn't have to be completely built out. MoFiber will then contract with an internet service provider. This can be one internet service provider if in order to entice an internet service provider to come in and supply the internet, because even if we build all this great infrastructure, if there's no internet running through the lines, then we haven't really done much. So it can be one or it can be multiple, depending on what works best for the area, for a specific county, just whatever. And that sort of goes back to the flexibility and the aligning incentives is really that shines at the ISP level. So the flexibility comes in where if it turns out that MoFiber just needs to get out of the way, an ISP will contract directly with the local government who owns the fiber infrastructure, they can do that. And then, because the ISP is being paid based on subscriber revenues from the fiber infrastructure that is built, they're incentivized to help increase adoption and demand measures, so through educational purposes, through education, marketing, things like that. Their incentive is going to be, we need to get as many people on this infrastructure that we built as possible. So in short, really the two main beacons of this project is that it's super flexible and allows for the diversity of the area to really shine and allows it to be super moldable to whatever challenges may come. And we're able to align incentives and really put everybody on track to reach the goal of providing high-speed, affordable internet to the target community.
So one of the main drivers of economic growth for our project is the adoption and demand scenarios. Right now, by year 5, 90% of the adoption will have occurred, with the remaining 10% happening in the last couple years. We plan to really drive this adoption and demand through community computer labs. These would ideally be fully stocked with computers, all the necessary hardware, software, and then they're basically shells where different organizations within the community can come in and host and facilitate educational events for everybody. Currently, because the ISP will be receiving the majority of the subscriber revenue, our infrastructure funding gap is around $62 million. While this seems large, we think that we can find enough public and private funding through these resources that you see here to complete this gap and to close the divide. Tier 1 represents the most optimal funding resources. We believe that these will further the project the most. Tier 2 and Tier 3 are funding opportunities that are also in alignment with our goals. However, they're more narrow in scope as to who they apply to in the community.
This is just a 5-year projection snapshot of sort of what we think the progression of the project will look like within the next 5 years. So within the first year, which would be this year, it's really sort of getting the bones there, identifying who the parties are going to be within the structure, doing all the legal documents, all the filings that need to be done to create the special purpose vehicle, contracting, identifying, contracting, soliciting bids from the other parties, and really just getting the structure there so that it's and focusing on that structure in the first year so that you can really roll into this year 2, 2023, and start to begin the phase 1 build out of Nottoway County. We chose Nottoway County because it is sort of it's the hub up here, right? It's the sort of the largest of the cities in the area, but it's still got a big gap. And so we see the potential of, let's get this project rolling, let's get it moving. We can work out some of the kinks in the project, use that flexibility, really make it shine, get some subscriber revenues rolling in for the ISP, make them happy, keep them on board. And then kind of skip into year 5, we see a look back on the project. So we're going to start looking at metrics. Did the ISP meet the requirements that we want them to have? And that's where the flexibility of using contracts really comes into play of, if we make it a term of the contract that you must meet these requirements to maintain your monopoly possibly over the area, then that's great, we can renew. If not, well, now we're in breach and we can move into either terminating and looking for a new solution or opening it up to the market and saying, who can provide these at what cost, and really just using that flexibility to set metrics and identify the best plan moving forward.
that work into your contracting with them if they were going to be the provider? Because it may be a different conversation if you're just incentivizing the infrastructure side versus then also having a contract with the provider.
I think that actually presents a really interesting challenge, but also a possible benefit, right, of aligning incentives. Kind of what we were saying is that, like, if we can find cooperatives who are already in this space, they're going to directly benefit potentially from being able to also enter bids for being the ISP on the project, then they're going to be even more eager to join, possibly even helping to build the infrastructure at cost because of the future earnings they might see from subscriber revenues. And so I think that's, I hope that there are many electric cooperatives in the area that are already in the space. And that's also going to go back to they're going to be in the unique position to really help. They have the resources already. They know what they're doing. They have the trained professionals, the staff, the polls, everything. So I think that is a optimistic, hopeful circumstance.
You need a model there. Again, I like what you do. I mean, you guys did a great job. So in your model, you had the incentives to create the design, build, and maintenance for the electric co-op, and the IT would come in and provide service, and they would get subscriber revenues for that. So there's a lot that goes into maintaining the infrastructure over a period of time. Where does the revenue, ongoing revenue for the co-op come into play in the model?
Ongoing revenue will be through fiber lease payments that the ISP will pay MoFiber or the government consortium collectively. So these fiber lease payments are set out for an initial term of 5 years and then can be renewed, but they help with maintenance costs that will be funneled down to the electric co-op through MoFiber. So the ISP will funnel the payment to MoFiber, who will then take it to the electric co-op for maintenance.
I think a point on that is that once the heavy lifting is done, if it turns out that it's easier for the ISP just to pay the electric cooperative to do it, the electric cooperative can then they can even subcontract out for the maintenance of it, and so MoFiber can get out of the way and just sort of let this thing run with all the great infrastructure that it's helped to build.
Great presentation. One of the questions that we have struggled with for many years now is trying to identify where we already have good capacity, where we have fiber, and I'm pretty asking fiber. Where are there areas that are in development that there are plans in place to serve? Where are the areas there's no one going to avoid where they're not going to get anything? How do you propose to identify, where the biggest need is as far as systems and using the funds that we put in the legislature and the federal funds, stuff like that? How do you propose to identify those areas where right now there's no one has ever served?
Yeah, so I think that the people of Northwest Missouri are smart and better, way more adequately informed to answer that question than I am. And that's why, actually, for the special purpose vehicle, it's going to be made, there's going to be a board of directors that is made up by stakeholders from the community that are going to be able to say, we need this place. Nobody has a plan to go out here. We need to tackle this. And that's where that flexibility of the plan really comes in. Is that we don't have to start in Nottoway County. We can start in Holt County, Atchison County, and target those communities that the community leaders, the citizens of the communities say, no, we think this is where the most important piece of this is going to be, and we want to tackle that first, and so that's what we're going to do.
Also, one of the kind of advantages we end up with accidentally is that when you talk about, say, private companies building out fiber, they have online, they will show you where their service areas are. So finding out existing service areas, determining where services, not just we plan to do it, because that can get very odd sometimes, but by being able to see where existing services are, where companies are planning to turn it on in the next year or so, which I think is probably the farthest out you really want to look, because that's where they would have already started construction and implementation. We kind of can get that information pretty quickly. So that kind of works in our advantage for this, that type of information is not, most companies are not hiding where they're planning to do this because they want that PR, they want that marketing, they want subscribers already. So in that case, finding out where existing resources are is not the most difficult thing to do, we feel.
Well, thank you again. You guys did a great job. One of the things that I'm really intrigued about is on the adoption side, and you guys talked about community computer lab idea, which our mayor and Randy, I think actually probably had a similar project that I had years ago when we first started talking broadband and technology at our senior center. But how did you guys consider how that could be funded and how that would affect the adoption rates in our communities?
Yes, so we believe that this would be funded through, I believe it was the CDBG and Public Works Fund. Additionally, Tier 2 has a couple funds that are tailored towards actual computers and the infrastructure for that, not just the broadband deployment. So we hope that the project will continue to apply for these because they are designed to meet those needs. And we really hope that these computer labs are functional, but also inspires people to use the internet and go out and make a difference.
I'll just add to that too, that if a computer lab starts and we really see an uptick in adoption rates and demand, I think that's going to raise the interest of the ISP and say, hey, that subscriber revenue we're not tapping into, how can we help? And really working together as a team on this to say, you're going to make way more money the more subscribers we get on here. This computer lab seems to be working, will you pitch in and help us on another one in another area and just kind of keep that going? It's a partnership, so that's really how we want it to operate.
And were you guys able to identify any other partners that are not listed already on the board that could be hosts for those centers?
Yes, so it could be private or public. We were thinking libraries, government buildings, but additionally, if there are big employers within the area that have extra space in their room or in their building, that would be pretty optimal as well. So it's flexible and truly could be put anywhere.
And I'll say, with Northwest's history as being, one of the first connected, I think maybe the first connected campus in the nation, it would seem pretty appropriate for one of those centers to be on the Northwest campus as well.
And as well, in terms of subscribers, especially at the higher end, by being able to provide larger employers such as Kawasaki area hospitals with a physically redundant internet connection, which having worked in various environments, that's always a critical problem. How do we get, so if someone, what's the old joke? If you get lost in the woods, bury some fiber, a backhoe will appear. When someone backhoes your fiber, because it's always a when, having a physically redundant, high-speed, backup channel is valuable for any business of any size, and this is a way to do it in a way that's fairly affordable, that they really are only paying, if they need extra capacity, they're only paying for that end connection. They're not paying for the whole fiber. They don't need to pay for a dedicated fiber channel. So for DR and BCP issues, having this redundancy just available for a relatively low cost and relatively low, very low CapEx, fairly low OpEx throughout the year, this is a huge incentive for the larger employers to buy into this very early on.
I have a question on technology, which I assume is going through here. You guys did a nice job of reporting real life challenges to various technologies and laws, cables and that. Here's my question. What's the last mile solution? Is wireless figuring your last mile solution?
For this project, not as much. And really, it's just a matter of focusing in where you're going to, putting as much wood behind one, a smaller number of rows as possible. Wireless is great. And if it came across that we were disparaging wireless in any way, absolutely not. Especially in agriculture, wireless within a farm, within an entity is massively used. The tech people, I think, thinking that this is still, Pa going out on his tractor, they have no idea of the level of technology being used within agriculture today. The idea with this is literally, as we've seen in a lot of places, and like with Google Fiber is a great example, fiber to the building. Like the last mile is part of this. Like it doesn't do any good to have a pole a mile away that you have to now, the household, the farm has to pay all the, the freight to get that connection to their building. That fails. So part of that is the last mile connection is a huge part of this. And we feel like, especially for example, ag, where you have massive amounts of, data flow, being able to, now take, instead of having to worry about how do you get that to the internet, how do you get that to the entities, the government entities, your suppliers that you need to, having that kind of taken care of for you. So you have all this, all you have to do is manage your own stuff because your internet connection is right there. That's a huge boost for them as well, because now that reduces what they have to be concerned about.
There are existing companies in this part of the state of Missouri whose job is to they just go around and dig holes in the ground and lay on fire. If you account for those in the business model at all?
Not specifically. We had a very limited amount of time in one sense. We also had some limitations in terms of who we could ask for information. So a lot of it was just based on what we could find in a small amount of time. This is not an either or kind of thing. If the entities have already laid the fiber, want to buy into this as it were, there's nothing about our plan that prevents that from happening. In fact, we would welcome it because that accelerates things. The more existing infrastructure we can fold into this project, the faster it gets done. And again, our priority with this project is getting internet connections to people who don't have it. And so they can be a part, making existing entities a part of this is absolute. This is not an exclusive. This is a very inclusively designed project, and we actually thought about how to figure in existing resources, which is why we try to use them wherever possible.
NADA not being able to provide customer heat because a road exists as a boundary for some public policy reason in the past.
I did not, and I think that's part of why we wanted to use the electric cooperatives and have the government involved as well, because we feel that between those two, somebody's going to have an easement, somebody's going to have a right-of-way that we can use. If there's a county road running in, the county government has an easement or a right-of-way on it. Typically, you can transport information, materials, items over that same right-of-way because that's sort of what the road was built for in the first place. So now I'm not going to say that there's not going to be legal challenges that come up because they always come up. And that's why we think the flexibility is so important, is because if a challenge does happen, the whole project isn't halted. We can be flexible, we can work around it, we can find someone who's willing and able to sort of bridge the gap for whatever that challenge is. And step in and become part of the team and really, help accelerate it and keep it moving forward as quickly as possible.
Just a question about your chart there. How did you come to the conclusion of those costs of the infrastructure? Because in our conversations with different ISPs, they all have a different view of how they're going to approach this in our counties. Some wireless, some direct vary. They all have a different footprint that they're outlining. So how did you come up with those figures? What were they based on?
Yes, so this is probably one of the more challenging parts of this project because the cost estimates are so broad, and we were given kind of a roadmap as to how much it would cost, but it could vary, and this is just the best estimate that we could get based on what we were given.
As Sophia said, one of the challenges that we ran into even in trying to find, if you're searching for how much does it cost to build a cell network, you will find tons of information saying it can be very expensive. What you can't find easily is information with actual numbers in it. How much per tower, How much does it cost to rent the helicopter to lift the antenna array to the top of the tower so you can bolt it on? How much do the people who bolt it? Finding those costs was like specifics, even good ballpark figures was tremendously difficult. And as you say, depending on the implementation you want to use, your costs are going to be all over the map. There's also pole access costs. Like if you have to mount your own pole or if you have to dig your own conduit, that's a non-technical, strictly speaking, that's not a technology cost. That's just this thing you have to do to use the technology. And again, the costs for that wildly vary based on a whole note of things. So this is really the best we could find for the purposes of this project, which is one of the reasons we tried to limit our focus so much, because we could spend months just digging up numbers.
Please join me in thanking the team.
Thank you. She's got the clicker.
Here at the Gateway to the West, take any city street, country road, or interstate. All roads lead to one. Meet us at the intersection of avant-garde jazz and veterinary medicine, the crossroads of biological conservation and geological engineering. Together, 4 distinct universities share a set of core values, defining a commitment to serve their students, their communities, and the state of Missouri. We innovate and create. Charging toward excellence with integrity, we improve Missourians' lives while preparing leaders to impact the world. Crisscrossing the Show Me State, we collaborate and discover. We value respect and engage our students in dialogue that considers every perspective. We're at a turning point, speeding forward, breaking barriers, and not checking the rearview mirror. We're the University of Missouri System.
Good morning. My name is Alicia.
I'm Ankit.
My name is Cliff.
And my name is Tara, and we are Team 2. So in the Target County area, Atchison, Gentry, Holt, Nottoway, and Worth, 39% of households don't have access to broadband, and 61% that do can afford speeds of up to 25 megabits per second. And among the sentiments shared by the ISPs in the ISP presentation report was that the cost of build-out is high, and the mapping framework affects build-out and funding because the requirement that marks the served areas somehow needs revision. So our team drafted a public-private partnership proposal to help bridge the digital divide. And I'll let Cliff talk about the structure.
Thanks, Tara. So what I wanted to talk about is the structure of our private-public partnership plan, how we're going to bring in all the different stakeholders, and some different funding options that we looked at. So just for basic background, public-private partnership, I'm sure most of you all judging are aware, is a way to bring together public entities and private business to work on the same common goal and to be contractually bound in that ways. We were proposing to use Missouri General Cooperation Statute as a flexible mechanism to bring together the stakeholders in a mutually beneficial relationship. So the kind of the core of our idea revolves around setting up anchor entity that we've branded the Northwest Missouri Broadband Commission. It can really be anything, but that's what we went with because we thought it sounded catchy and similar to the existing Northwest Missouri Regional Council of Governments. So one of the goals with the P3 is to, how do you divide the roles and responsibilities, who shares the risk, who owns, operates, and maintains the network. So the goal of the commission would really be oversight, governance, and regulation assistance. That would consist of a couple different things, such as the commission board, which would help provide governance and regulation, project management office, which could provide program support, make sure that the build is, to standard procedures and technical specifications, and an arm that would pursue the public grants because the funding is an integral part of this design. That being said, the ISPs and the local electrical cooperatives would largely be tasked with owning, operating, maintaining, and building the network. And then we also wanted to bring the local communities and the neighborhoods receiving the build out and the infrastructure growth in with a little bit of opportunity to raise funding and have some guidance in their local areas. And that's where we thought the community improvement districts added a good touch. It would make it so like all of the main stakeholders are tied together through this relationship. And talking about stakeholders, there's a couple different ways to view stakeholders and how to bring them into the relationship. And you got to kind of look at them by the, on the power versus interest index. At least that's the way we decided to analyze it. And there's some entities that would have high power but low interest. It might be some of the federal regulations that you want to stay abreast, and also like high interest, but maybe they're on the peripheral of it, which would be educational institutions. But the main entities that we thought had the most power and interest together is electrical cooperatives, ISPs, local governments, public officials, community groups, those types of things. And to bring those in, that's how we thought this structure with the core anchor entity made a lot of sense, because a lot of those high interest, high influence groups could have representatives on the board and help guide the whole build out of the P3 project. I also want to touch on what local government can do, and local government can help remove barriers that exist and also promote adoption, and that could be either at the higher level or even at the community level. But importantly, talk about how funding, because there is generally a gap between the cost to build such a large infrastructure project as this, as well as the revenues that will be generated down the road. And Ankit and the rest of the team will talk about that more. But I wanted to touch on the different, what we thought would make a sustainable model. So it was kind of a combination of public grants, locally raised funds, and money, cost covered by the ISPs and electrical cooperatives who would be owning and operated. Some grants that we thought looked especially attractive for this kind of program, they all kind of centered around providing broadband internet to underserved and unserved areas, and that includes the American Rescue Plan Act, the United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA, grant program, and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. All three of these programs have opportunity to get significant amount of funds for broadband, and most of those go through the state government, but we could, for the American Rescue Plan Act, looked like per project we could get up to $10 million, and USDA Reconnect Loan Act, depending on whether or not it was a straight grant or possibly a grant with funding provided by the entity, such as the commission or the program, really, you get 25 to 30 million. And then with the Investment, Infrastructure, and Jobs Act, that's kind of, from what we could tell, it's just getting underway, so the opportunities are there, we just don't know what they are yet. And like I said, the community improvement districts, they have their own tools and mechanisms to raise funds locally through taxes or grants or different bonds or investment strategies, and then the ISPs. But I want to pass it off to Ankit to talk about our service delivery.
Thanks, Cliff. So I'll be talking about what kind of technologies we propose to use to bridge this access gap and what it's going to cost us. So underserved areas, as we already know, they get less than 25 megs download speeds currently, and we observe they are mostly around major cities like Rockport, Mount City, Maryville, and these are places where important administrative, financial services, medical services, and educational services are located, and they need fast and reliable network, and that's why we propose using fiber connectivity to provide access to all of the underserved areas. And we used the gap analysis done by the UM System researchers, and we found that it's overall going to cost about $17 million. That will be about $3,000 per structure of residence or business that we serve. And unserved areas are currently places where the download speeds are less than 10 megabits per second, and they need broadband just as badly as the underserved areas. And one challenge is that they are remotely located, and it may take a lot of time to get fiber infrastructure reach that place, and that is why we propose to provide them with wireless technology called radio frequency over fiber, which is a technology which is very easy to deploy. It's super fast, and it can give you speeds comparable to what fiber can give. And we know that because very recently, United Fiber collaborated with UM System researchers and successfully implemented this technology in Northwest Missouri in Clinton County. And we estimate, again from the gap analysis, that this might cost $18 million in total, and that would come to around $9,000 per structure that we are able to serve. Coming to how we're going to phase this whole thing out. So our plan is to spread this infrastructure deployment over the next 10 years. And we, of course, going to split this into multiple phases. And which phase to prioritize, it's really up to how the Broadband Commission sets the directive. And they are supposed to tell us which community needs it first. And as per their directive, we should secure funding and deploy infrastructure in those areas first. And for one particular phase, I would say we would first have to establish the community improvement districts, get the governance structure in place, and parallelly we can secure the funding from applying to all of the grants that Cliff talked about. And then we can get to the network topology design, getting the bill of materials, and just start adding fiber to the utility poles, and then deploying it to the households. And if it's wireless, of course, it's going to take less time. We estimate that for wired service, it will take, for one phase, it will take around 1 year to complete. For wireless, it may be even shorter. And this whole thing is going to spread out till 2031, and we hope that the last unserved customer has broadband access by 2031. And to take you further, I hand it over to Alicia. Thank you.
All right, and so this infrastructure is all great and wonderful, but we need the residents to actually use the infrastructure. And nationwide research shows that the two main reasons that people with access to existing infrastructure are not utilizing broadband is unaffordability and a lack of interest or knowledge on how to use the broadband. So we base these numbers on some research done by the University of Missouri System. The minimum scenario of how we hope to increase adoption in the target area, and then the maximum scenario. In order to reach those maximum numbers, it's going to be a community-wide effort. So first, to address the affordability, we are going to require that the ISPs participate in the FCC's Affordable Connectivity Program. And what this does is it provides a $30 per month subsidy from the FCC to residents at or below 200% federal poverty level, which in this community is around 40% of households, so that would make a significant impact. Another way to address adoption is to require digital and computer literacy and curriculum in elementary schools, high schools, and higher education institutions. And additionally, those organizations and libraries can partner to do education campaigns for elderly residents, rural residents, on both how to use the technology and the benefits the technology can provide. In the same vein, medical providers can make patients aware of the benefits of telehealth, especially in a rural community where it may be a long drive to your doctor appointments, as residents are made aware of how telehealth can benefit them, and also being given the skills to participate in telehealth. And finally, in our agricultural community, making sure that farmers are aware of all of the things that broadband can provide, both towards their farming operation and their personal quality of life. So in addition to getting a plan that's affordable for residents, we also, of course, want to make sure that it's attractive to the ISPs. So based on existing pricing structures in the region, as well as community feedback, some survey results of what customers are willing to pay, we came up with the following pricing structure where there will be 3 tiers, ranging from $60 to $100 per month for residential customers. When you take into account the ACP subsidy, that would bring the lowest tier, which is still wonderful speeds at 100 megabits per second up and 20 down, that's going to be only $30, which based on various things that we looked into, we feel is affordable for a lot of the residents in the community. We also developed a business tier, and based on those different tiers, we project, this is our conservative estimate, that by year 10 there would be $15.37 million in cumulative revenue. If we reach the maximum adoption scenario, that would be doubled to closer to $30 million. Beyond just the ISP's revenue, we also are going to have economic benefits to the community. And so we certainly have the increases in GDP, the increases in taxes. Again, in the minimum scenario, we're looking at $6 million in just increases in county taxes. If you double that for our maximum projection, that's $12 million. The increase in GDP, $133 million, again, doubled for a maximum scenario. We also have the telehealth benefits and education benefits to residents. And then, more importantly to me, are the other benefits, the things that you can't quantify. And so that's going to be the convenience of being able to work from home, the civic services where now the electrical grid can use a smart grid, those kind of things, and just the quality of life improvements, whether it's, you know, residents, elderly children being able to come home and work remotely and stay for a while because they do have access to that broadband, or maybe a farmer who went to college and now is coming back. And they're more likely to maybe take over the family farm because they can apply all those new technologies that they've learned, and they have access to all the things that they got accustomed to while attending a university.
So in conclusion, to summarize at least the side-by-side view of the numbers, the estimated cost of the structures would be $36 million, and how we plan to fund it is at least through the grants and other funding through, for example, the CIDs and the ISPs. So at least for the USDA grant, at least there's a $25 million max for 100% grant, and for the ARPA broadband, there's $35 million maximum, $10 million maximum per project, and taking into account at least each county being at least a project, it's a good deal. And then hopefully once it's all done, the benefits include telehealth medicine, improved more educational opportunities, and future work includes that the unserved areas can be upgraded to broadband, to fiber, and that the P3 plan can be applied to other areas. And with that, you're welcome to questions.
It's up to you. I'm good either way.
Federal grants of some sort, federal money of some sort, and then it looks like the CID
We did think about it, and Elijah, I might pass it to you a little bit because she did most research on demand, but from the community improvement district standpoint, we thought that that would be a good, and a lot of times, like I know in past when I've worked on projects like engineers without borders and stuff, there's been a requirement to have the local community support the project in some way. So that seemed like a good way to help the commission prioritize where to build, because if the communities, and I don't know, you're right, possibly we don't get any community willing to, tax themselves, as you would say, but if we did, I think that would be a great way to prioritize the build out of the network, to deliver broadband to communities that are most heavily invested themselves.
In looking at the community's feedback surveys, all the forums that they did before we were even involved, it does seem like it is a priority for a lot of residents. And also, with our education campaigns of making them aware of the benefits that broadband, if the community knows, if we do this, we're going to have, I think one of the estimates was 12% growth in GDP compared to if we did it, if they can kind of see these numbers of how it's going to help the community, the jobs it might bring in, the benefits just overall, I think we're hopeful that with the existing support combined with that, education campaign, that people would be willing to vote for that.
In your plan that you initially submitted to us, you guys had quite a few revenue models over there. Why did you choose the revenue model that you showed us today?
Okay, so we had three, for the people who didn't see the entire plan, we had three revenue options, subscriber revenue plans. One of them started with kind of lower prices for everybody, and we felt that that one did not have as much enticement for the ISPs. We wanted them to feel like they have skin in the game, they're going to get money from this project. Another plan had sort of higher prices, and then the ISP would also offer a lower price to people who are eligible for the ACP program. So in addition to the federal government subsidy, they would also get a discount from the internet service provider. The reason we kind of steered away from that one is we felt that it just added an additional burden on the ISP, and that they would have to now be tracking all of these requirements, maintaining two different pricing structures. This one we felt was a good balance in that there was that $30 option with the use of the ASP program, but then there were still higher plans, the $100 per month subscriptions that can help the ISP make up the revenue.
Broadband improvement districts, you chose the CIE. Was that just a generalization of all of those put together, or was that a specific path that you thought was better than the others?
I would like to say yes to both questions a little bit. It could be any of them, right? Our plan didn't really require any certain one to be chosen. That's why I kind of presented a couple of them. But I did think the community improvement districts gave the ability to not restrict the area that it could be in, and say a lot of them had similar requirements as far as like who could own the network and how they were created. But like I know some of them, like the neighborhood improvement districts, were more like residential, and the broadband improvement districts were specific for broadband, and I know that's what we're doing, but I just felt like the community improvement districts seem more flexible.
You mentioned the wireless option was going on in County. Are you referring to that project in Maryville?
It's radio frequency over fiber, and I think the name of the project is Project Overcome. They have been funded by the US Ignite, and a team of UM System researchers, they partnered with United Fiber. And United Fiber was the people who actually got all the infrastructure installed, and they got these people subscribed to the service. And I think this was, the particular town was Turney in Missouri, and that's a town which has about 100 or 120 households. And out of that, I think they were able to serve about 35 or 40 customers. I know Darren is sitting here, and he might be able to correct me. But yeah, I was involved in that project a little bit, and it sounded really promising. People appreciated the service they got, and the service was mostly reliable, and the speeds they got, they were able to get 100 Mbps both upload and download speeds. So that's what we felt, that for unserved areas, for quickly and urgently mitigating this access gap, this wireless service would be a good option. So, yeah.
And the essence of it was it's going to be variable and being able to supply that speed to the user need as opposed to those not needing much. So that was the process of being variable.
Yeah. Yeah, that element was also there, yes, true.
So, in regards to your cost and revenue model, your timeline for implementation is relatively long, and there is a lot of funding that is being pushed out there for broadband, and a lot of that funding has a relatively short span of development. So, when you consider that there's a lot of funding out there, resources are going to be somewhat limited over time, driving costs up in theory. How do you plan to manage the cost and revenue models over that period of time to make this sustainable longer term?
Well, as far as the costs are concerned, of course, we have spread it out over the next 10 years, but it would, the kind of resources that you talked about, of how we will actually use them and deploy it, our timeline can shrink if the funding comes in faster and we are able to get some resources in hand, especially labor and material, then we should be able to deliver it faster, but I would agree that this is not something which we have already addressed in our plan currently. But Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is currently, that funding option is where we don't exactly know what is the timeline currently, and we are still learning more and more about it. And if the other funds, the USD and ARPA funds, if those timelines run out and we miss those deadlines, we are hoping that maybe Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act will be able to fund whatever comes after 2026 or 2028. Alicia, you want to add something about the revenue?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like he said, we sort of spread it out. We realize that's kind of a long-term plan for something that changes as fast as broadband. But without having guaranteed funding to sort of leave those options out there of other funding opportunities that may come along, maybe doing it in phases. And also with, the current labor shortages and supply chain issues, just kind of those hiccups in the line. And so I think, like he said, if we get all the funding right away, great, then we can hopefully move the timeline up.
Speeds on the wireless side getting to the unserved areas that are currently unserved now, do you think that technology can reach the need, meaning number of people? I don't know the exact number, but there's thousands of unserved people. Can that technology reach all of them?
When it comes to wireless technology, the only barrier is not really the capacity, but if you have line of sight with the antenna to that household. So I think on the supply side, this wireless service gets about maybe 10 gigabits per second or 1 gigabit per second speeds. And when it goes to the consumer side, they can actually serve a lot of consumers. And the thing is, we are extending this wireless service from a fiber infrastructure. Fiber can carry a high-speed internet. So, I mean, as it depends on what kind of equipment you install. If you are able to install high-capacity equipment which can handle a lot of internet traffic, then I don't think it should be very difficult to serve all of the members of a community, maybe 100 or 200 households in a small community. It would just be about how we are able to get a line of sight to their house. And if there's no line of sight, maybe you have to install multiple repeaters to make sure that they actually receive the service.
And there, right at the end, you talked about maybe connecting some of the fiber over time, long-term maintenance and things like that. Did you consider who would fund or who would own that part of the project kind of looking forward?
So part of it can be funded by the revenue that is going to come through the subscribers. So I think when it comes to fiber, the best part is the maintenance of the equipment is very low, and you don't have very frequent outages unless there's been a tornado or something and the utility poles got destroyed. That sort of things can be funded by some kind of disaster relief funds that are usually made available by state governments, and that kind of funding can also be pushed into restoring services. But that's only in case of outages. Usual service requests and all, I think those are usually, ISPs are self-sufficient in those matters. So yeah, mostly the subscriber revenues should be able to help it, and any disaster relief fund in case things go out of hand.
Since you've incorporated wireless element in your architecture, do you consider partnering maybe a satellite internet provider to reach either widely dispersed or hard to get to areas? Something, a provider that uses maybe advanced sat or CubeSat.
We did talk about it. Like satellite is another great option for wireless. You can get internet pretty much anywhere you put the antenna up. But also the thing is, satellite is, and when it comes to reliability, satellite scores less than the RFOF service that we recommend. And in the community surveys that we saw, reliability is actually the topmost factor that affects people's adoption decision. And that is why we felt that maybe if instead of satellite, we can go with RFOF to meet this access gap.
Yeah, in the community feedback, a comment after comment after comment was, well, I pay for internet, but 2 days a week it doesn't work because of the weather or this or that with the satellite. And so if we're trying to, again, get the buy-in from the community, they want internet that 2 in the morning it works, 8 a.m. it works. It works all day, every day, no matter what's going on, other than maybe a tornado.
Other questions? All right, thank you.
Day 1. Can you feel it? The beginning of a journey where experience is opportunity. Encouragement comes through community. Hard work driven by passion is worth it, and ambition is rewarded with success. This chosen bond resonates and inspires. At Northwest, you'll feel it. Day 1.
We know Northwest Missouri is a place you can belong. Living, learning, work, and play are more than just parts of existence. They are interconnected pursuits best followed in a place you can feel at home. A successful experience in one of these areas is dependent on the happiness and prosperity found in the others. In Northwest Missouri, everyone has a chance to do everything. We value the voices of many, and we dream big and grow together. Everyone plays.
There are walkable small towns with community parks and ball fields, as well as larger venues for skating, bowling, swimming, golfing, gaming, and more. Instead of being forced to specialize at a very early age due to competition in large school districts, our kids have the opportunity to participate in a wide variety of activities throughout each year. They can get involved in youth organizations, athletics, leadership projects, and fun family events. Our younger and older adults have many places to gather, be active, and socialize. And there are plenty of ways for adults and families to get out and about, including festive, fun fairs and backyard bonfires with friends.
Everyone works.
There are a lot of opportunities for professionals, skilled trades, and creative talent in Northwest Missouri. From Kansas City all the way north to Iowa, our unemployment rate is very low, and there are new jobs opening up every day. Innovation and new businesses are on the rise. Historically, agriculture, manufacturing, healthcare, and higher education have been our biggest employers. We also have strong emerging industries in animal health, life sciences, technology, value-added agribusiness, and tourism. Furthermore, we love our award-winning bakeries, cozy coffee shops, and our wide variety of restaurants, professional services, and unique businesses. Whether working from home in their own endeavors, working remotely for large corporations, or driving a short distance to a workplace, people here are known for getting things done. In fact, our region ranks the highest in the state for productivity per capita. And if you are looking for a place to start a business, We have many supportive resources and helpful networks for you here.
Everyone learns.
We strongly believe that lifelong learning is the key to a meaningful and prosperous life of work and play. The excellent K-12 student-to-teacher ratio here means every student gets the attention they need. And our schools are doing some very forward things to ensure our children are ready for this fast-paced and changing world. Innovation labs, maker spaces, creative problem solving, design thinking, and career readiness programs are becoming commonplace. Libraries are alive and well as they help build literacy in digital and traditional media for all ages. And let's not forget our amazing universities, career and technical schools, and colleges. Almost all career paths are included in our comprehensive education system.
Everyone can live in Northwest Missouri.
We have restored neighborhoods of friends and wide open acreages with plenty of space for gardens, groves, and grazing. We have beautiful and productive farms with wineries, breweries, and farm-to-table restaurants to go with them. We have conservation areas, hiking and cycling trails, lakes, and rivers. We have the entertainment of music from many different types of bands, and there are almost 40 different faith communities who have found a home to pray here. We have several highways and 2 interstates running through our lands. We have small and large airports and downtowns with character and creative businesses. Much of our community collaboration work is made light by the involvement of many hands.
There's so much to do and experience here. We're constantly learning about ourselves every day as we strive to better connect our counties and communities. Northwest Missouri is a doorway to hundreds of possibilities, from city lights to starry nights. We welcome you to join us in maximizing our potential. To learn more about the counties and communities that make up Northwest Missouri, go to maximizenwmo.org.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's a wireless transmitter that will connect the presentations that are playing. That's how we're using it to broadcast. Yes.
Yes, I'm going to leave that clicker. I'm going to set it right there during my part of that or of that other slide, the next slide.
So everybody
you guys can see it.
Yeah, it said it's the same speaker on the wall. That's fine, I get it. Okay, please proceed.
Hello, thank you for joining us today. My name is Anna Heatman.
I'm Emily Moyer.
I'm Chandrasekhar Akanapalli. Myself, Tarun Sai Nariguram.
Watson Matsons Waliala.
And we are excited to share with you all our P3 proposal to bring broadband to northwestern Missouri, more specifically the residents and businesses of Atchison, Holt, Nodaway, Worth, and Gentry counties. Recently, a massive amount of federal funding for broadband projects and infrastructure has made reliable high-speed internet a real possibility for these rural communities struggling to thrive in an increasingly digital world. This underserved community deserves the opportunity to join the digital age and reap all the associated benefits. By joining the Northwest Missouri Regional Council of Governments, or NWMO, with internet service providers United Fiber and Midwest Data, our team hopes to present a long-term relationship that is economically sustainable and ultimately brings digital equity to every resident of the target community. NWMO will be responsible for ownership of the broadband network and applying directly for competitive grants. They will consult with the state of Missouri about funding options not open directly to local governments. United Fiber and Midwest Data will share responsibility for the construction, operation, and maintenance of the broadband network. Midwest Data will also promote adoption of broadband in the target community through social media and community outreach. We expect there will be challenges when dealing with a project this large in scale. The construction and improvement of necessary infrastructure alone is a giant undertaking, as is the cost of doing so. To even begin this proposed project, adequate mapping of potential broadband improvement districts is crucial. Many areas with internet speeds legally qualified as underserved are not represented as such. In fact, the FCC broadband availability map appears to overstate coverage by an average of 21% in every state. Community support and adoption of broadband will be essential in ensuring a mutualistic relationship. Despite these challenges, we believe an opportunity this good cannot be passed up. The target community will benefit greatly from access to telehealth services, the option to attend school or work remotely, and a general increase in social determinants of health, such as economic stability and social connection. Our presentation outlines a plan to surpass these obstacles and achieve all the benefits that broadband has to offer this community. I'll now hand it over to Emily, who will discuss our design business plan.
The world continues to become more reliant on internet access, and it's becoming an essential service. There are many communities in the United States that offer this service, which includes each community with its own unique and different business model to fit the exact needs of that community. A fiber to the premise, FTTP, is often the most efficient and best option for these connections in communities. It's an optimal delivery medium that provides direct internet access to a group of users or user from an internet service provider, an ISP. FTTPs are more reliable and they are easier to maintain. They have a flexible network and are able to handle any future challenges, technological challenges that come from internet services. Key drivers in a broadband utility's successors are to make a positive impact in a community and boost economic development. FTTPs are able to do so by creating competition in the marketplace and being beneficial to fiber networks. FTTPs provide a better broadband experience and solution than fixed wireless. It's more expensive on the forefront, but they have lower operating costs. An FTTP is paid over a 10-year period, which is only half of what a fixed wireless would cost in an underserved location. Our answer for these counties and communities is fiber. It supports both long distance and overseas with the highest bandwidth available. Companies tend to favor fiber over fixed wireless because it's a limited market. Some even see fixed wireless just as a stepping stone to fiber because it is the future of internet connection. For years, fixed wireless and fiber have existed and done so in complementary ways. As this relationship continues and bandwidth demands only grow higher, the number of fiber-connected wireless connections will only continue to increase. Today, wireless technology is valued and needed the most to provide bandwidth mobility. Fiber has an essential way of becoming the center of this connection. In communities where funding is a challenge, fixed wireless can be used to provide internet access until the funding is able to support fiber. To further explain the resources needed to build fiber in these areas, I will hand it over to Chandra.
Thank you, Emily. That was a good detailed information about technology. So coming to the revenues part and how much funds we have. For any project to get it implemented, get it done, we need to answer three main questions. One is, how much is the overall cost for that project? And the second question is, how much funds we have to make the project implemented? And the third one is, on a long run, how much amount we are going to gain, how much revenues we are going to get, we are going to collect from the people. So are the people going to use that amount? Are they going to pay it? Are they going to use our service which we are going to provide? So the first one is the overall estimated cost. As the Nordway County as its geographical location is centered to all of these 4 counties, we thought that we should keep the Nordway County as a center for all other counties, and from that we're going to lay the optical fiber to all the other 4 counties. So as Emily has said, we are using the optical fiber. So from the Nordway County, we have calculated the distance from the Nordway County to all other 4 counties. That is going to be the 220 miles. And we are going to add some additional miles as an extra miles for that one. If you have to lay more additional miles, in that scenario, we are going to add additional miles and multiplied by, we have the cost per laying per mile. This is $27,000 per mile, and it is given by the US telecom and communication industry. And now the overall cost to lay this optical fiber is around, we can see $5.9 million for that one. And not only that, we need to have the building cost also. We need to have the miscellaneous equipment cost, we need to have the other miscellaneous costs are also there. And overall, all the sum would come up to $6.65 million for that one. So this is the overall estimated cost which is calculated by us based on the statistical reports given by US telecom industry. And coming to the next one, we need to have the funds. So how much funds we available currently through the grants, through the public funds, state and the federal funds. So we have three major funds here. One is the BEAD program, Broadband Equity Access and Deployment. In this fund, we have overall $14.2 billion, and as part of it, we are going to get the initial fund of around $5 million to $100 million, and tentatively, we are going to get more than that. Not only that, we have middle mile broadband program also. In that one, we are going to get $5 million to $100 million. And the other one is Digital Equity Act. And out of that, we have three different grant programs, that is State Equity Grant Program, and State Planning, State Capacity, as well as Competitive Grant Program. The planning program, the funds we are going to get during the planning stage, it is around $60 million, and similarly, we are going to get the capacity grant while we are deploying it, and also the competitive grant we are going to get once we have reached the market and we need to sustain in the market. So there is one important, this is one of the important grant I feel, competitive grant, is because nowadays in competitive world, the public service providers are not able to sustain due to the market, due to the other private broadband service providers. In that scenario, when we are using the public funds to make it reach to the people, in that scenario, we need funds like this to sustain for a longer time. And as these 5 counties are in rural areas, the fluctuation in the price, the monthly price for the broadband service should not exceed drastically over a period of time, because if it is owned by a private sector, they might increase the prices for the people, and the rural may not be able, people living in rural areas may not be able to afford it. In that scenario, this would come into the picture, because as publicly run is owned by this one, so these grants might help us to make it a long run. And over a period of time, we need to also have the revenues from the people. We need to collect regular monthly bills from those people who are using it, and we need to run or we need to maintain our broadband service. In that scenario, how we are going to calculate the revenue is, we have considered each county's working employees and multiplied by the affordable connectivity program funds which each family is going to receive in this 5 counties. So affordable connectivity program is signed by Governor Parson. Thanks to him, that every family is going to receive $30 per month, and this $30 per month, if they are living in rural areas, so they can pay in return to us. So out of this one, each county, all the working employees are going to pay the $30 per month, and we're going to calculate the amount, so that the revenue is around $7 million, and the average would be around $3.5 million. So once we have the revenues, it is substantially going to increase year by year, because as the number of employees are also going to increase once we provide the broadband network service to these 5 counties, the number of employed people are going to increase, and in return then the revenues collected from them would also increase. So we make the people of these counties grow, and in return we are going to grow. So that is what that's what important in this act. And coming to the next one. What if at certain point we still lack funds, and there are situations like COVID pandemic? In that scenario, we have lost so many funds. I mean, we are situations. It is a drastic situation where many companies have drowned and they have come down. So in that scenario, we need to still have some funds to sustain in the market, to make our broadband service providers still successful. In that scenario, we are going to take the American Rescue Plan Act. In that one, we have $250 million for broadband structure. So that's what, still we have funds, and these are more than sufficient for us. And I would like to hand over to Tarun for adoption and demand.
Thank you, Chandra. And coming to the adoption and demand, in addition to financial resources, the main goal of the public institution is to increase the use of internet application which will benefit healthcare, education, and economic activities in the targeted community. Benefits arise from broadband construction and household broadband infrastructure. When coming to the survey conducted by the UM Systems, when the survey is conducted in the 4 counties, as we can see, the broadband service, like the median, the overall Missouri County median value is 49.7%, which is the household broadband, fixed broadband infrastructure. And for the Hutchinson County and Nodway County is much more higher than the overall Missouri County, which is like 65.4%. Coming to Gentry and Worth County, which is just below the mark of Broadway, like the overall Missouri County median value. When we coming to the minimum scenario and maximum scenario, this is the survey done for 10 years if the broadband is fixed to the 10-year plan, and we can see the annual average increase of job is very much high. For example, in the minimum scenario for the Hutchinson County and Nodway, it's 35 and 143 respectively, and it's when we compare to the annual employment compared to the 2019 county employment, it has growth like 22.2% and 0.8%. Coming to the maximum scenario, in each of the counties, it has double in the maximum scenario. That is like, for example, Hudson County, in the minimum it was 35 and the maximum it was 72. And the annual employment is also increased by 3%. So overall, like in adoption and demand, it will help the county in the target communities. And for example, it will, for example, in the education section, we can all afford like the online classes, and it will benefit the students and all the healthcare centers. Over to Martins.
Thank you, Tyron. So afterwards, we'll proceed with the time frame and the phasing of our implementations. So the solutions we are proposing is scheduled to begin and request applications for funding by July and should receive initial funding by the end of September. Afterwards, we'll proceed with the design and plan for the middle mile and last mile infrastructures, deployments, and implementation. This phase of the project and the plan should take about a month and should be completed by the end of October. Thereafter, we proceed with the design and planning. After design and planning, we proceed with the sourcing and procurement of components, cables, and materials to be used for the project. But the strategy here is to reduce the supply chain lag that's currently flagged as a problem, to establish relationships with local vendors and suppliers of the ISPs. This will help us to reduce the time lag and receive necessary components and cables and materials by the end of deployment. So this should be at the end of the fall and the winter season. So we'll have all the time to get the components, cables, and materials to be used for the deployment, infrastructure construction and upgrades for the middle mile and last mile infrastructures. Afterwards, we'll start with the deployments and construction of the infrastructure. It should begin by May of the following year. So we'll strategy is to start with the unserved communities and proceed with the underserved communities. And then the strategy there also is also to provide fiber to the premises and fiber to the home for these communities. So after serving the unserved and underserved communities, then we can begin the construction and upgrades of the middle mile infrastructures and last mile infrastructure by using the dark fiber for connectivity. So this will serve as a very permanent and future-proof solutions to the communities and for better performance. So this should begin by the May of the following year after receiving initial funding and doing our design and planning. So this should run in parallel with other activities and should run for about 4.5 years to be able to better serve our communities with better services. Thank you.
trying to help bring funding. Do you see them long-term retaining ownership in any of this, or is it hand off to them, or are they just supportive of bringing funding?
Yeah, for the starter, I think we need to be totally public because we are having sufficient funds to make this service run for public, make it public for a couple of years. After 5 to 6 years, when the people get accustomed to the broadband, using of this broadband service, then we can put it as we can tie up with the third parties so that we can increase the growth of it, growth of the broadband network, and we can expand it also based upon that funds. For the initial stage, if you're going to tie up with the third parties, the price of the monthly bill they are going to pay is going to increase, and this may not be acceptable by most of the people who are living in the rural areas. Did I answer your question correctly, sir? Sure. Thank you.
So on one of your slides, I believe you mentioned that the revenues that you're looking at for the 5 counties is going to be around $7 million.
Yep.
Looking at the math, that implied that the ACP was going to fund $30 of that, and that's how you came about your revenues. So does that imply then that the users won't pay anything themselves?
It's completely not that, but for the initial stages, there would be, it's not at the initial stage, everyone would be using. In all the counties, every family is not going to use the broadband network. There would be a couple of families who would be using that. In that one, I felt that, we thought that based upon the reports, the employed families are going to use the broadband service at the initial stages. And post that, we might also have the non-employed families also using these funds. This broadband service which we are providing. So once they also get into the picture, this $30 plan, which revenue which we have collected may not be considered. At that time, each individual family are going to pay. So for the starter stage of 1 to 2 years, from this act, we are going to give funds to the people to pay their own bills. So it's like we are giving them and we are taking it back again. Once they get accustomed to this broadband service, once they feel, yes, this has to be there, this is something which is useful in their daily lives, and we want it, at that time, we are going to reduce those funds, and we are going to make people accustomed to it of paying the bills, complete bills. Yes, fiber everywhere. But at North Bay County, we might have a tower, cell tower, which would be like a hub for all these 5 counties, and which can gain the signal from the main server, which is which is the provider for that one. Anna, can you please answer this question?
Yes, I can take this question. Yeah. So ultimately, NWMO will retain ownership. There are certain processes that require them to own the infrastructure. I would have to get back to you about the specifics on that, but I know that ultimately NWMO would be retaining ownership with our model.
You guys had a few extra funding sources that I have not seen before, the hundreds of cell phone towers and there's a couple of others. Are those new programs or those programs that have been existing and have funded similar projects? Can you tell me a little bit about some of those different sources?
Sorry. The fundings are recently, few of the fundings are recently signed, and for that we need to claim by this August 30th is one of the deadline for one of the funds, and September 30th is also one of the deadline for one of the funds. So yeah, these have been signed by one of the fund, like Middle Mile program is signed by President Biden on November 2011. So these funds are already there. They want to develop the Missouri state. So these are not newly added. I mean, though it is recently came into act last year, but still these are already present and we can use them. Unless we have to start now to claim those funds. So the deadlines are very near. So once we claim those funds, once we propose our proposals of how our broadband structure is going to be, how our funding cost and how we are laying the optical fiber in all those counties, then they are going to release the funds accordingly to our proposed structure. Yeah.
From the survey we conducted, like the research has been done, like for example, if the broadband has been developed in a span of 10 years, like how the employment will affect in that particular county. For example, the construction department or the household broadband infrastructure, like it will benefit the local people, like they will get employed, for example, in that particular things, like small things. And coming to the, for example, like the internet applications used by the education department, like they might not be able to go to the college. For example, like the last 2 years we faced the COVID situation. We were like comfortable sitting in our home and like doing the online classes. That will affect the education. That will help the education department. And coming to the telemedicine, and coming to the one of the main thing is it's like irrigation, all that fields. For example, if they have the internet not only in their home but in the fields, what they can do is like the digital monitoring can be done. Like digital monitoring and the everything can be digitalized. Like right now, like most of the people, they'll be working on the machines and there is no digital connectivity around the field. It will be up to the houses, the optical fiber. If the optical fiber it can be gone through the fields and it will benefit the farmers to do some digital activities. And nowadays we are coming up with a lot of new systems proposed and to occupy the irrigation department. Thank you.
I would like to add up to what Tarun has said. The University of Missouri has conducted that research, and in that research they have done a research in such a way that what if the broadband is made reach to the people, the household business can come up to online, the education system can also improve, and which will in turn increase the number of employments within the counties, and students can also move away out of the counties to get their jobs. So this statistics, this report, they have conducted a research on that one, and after a couple of years, over a period of 10 years, they have come to a value that yes, if the broadband is at this particular Mbps and if it is reaching this many number of people, then yes, these counties can expect this kind of growth after a couple of years. So this was research done by University of Missouri, and based upon that statistics, we have that report. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the great work of all of the students. Broadband is so complex. I'm a layperson. But the students and their ability to look at all of the complicating, the many factors involved is just amazing. And I want to thank the judges too for your work and a lot of the work, pre-work that you did ahead of time to come here and be prepared. What's going to happen next is the judges are going to go confer as it relates to the presentation. and looking at that. They've already judged all of the written proposals. They're going to do that. While they do that, we're going to hear about some exciting resources that are available that support broadband expansion in multiple ways. Resources, websites, that sort of thing. So we're going to have some of those presentations in just a minute. But before we do that, Tony Luppino, please come up here. It's your time. Yes, it is.
I see this nowhere on the schedule.
It doesn't matter. Stand up, stand up, stand up. So none of this would have happened without Tony Luppino. The idea for this concept is pretty significant. Looking at 4 universities in the beginning, we landed with 3 students, working with 12 students across multiple universities, getting administrators and faculty from all of those universities to help encourage student involvement. And all of the nuances that are involved in that is really significant. This is Tony's brainchild, Tony's idea. That and you're going to jump in and you're going to say, stop it. Many people worked on it. And he's right, but none of this would have happened without Tony's involvement. So thank you, Tony.
I appreciate that. I will just say this, it was a team effort, but I did send the most emails. So the students and the judges, they'll verify that in any affidavit you want. But thank you very much.
Well, if you got an email, if you're sitting in the room and you got an email from Tony about any of this, raise your hand. Yes, we all did. Very good. Well, thank you for that. So I appreciate that. Again, all of the many folks that came together to support that. So judges, if you all would like to go to your room. I hear I think Kim brought donuts, right? Kim? Yes, Kim brought you donuts. So they will go do their work. In the meantime, I'm going to ask Mark McCarty to come on up to the stage, and he's going to help us understand the sets of resources that will be talked about here in just a moment as well. So Mark, here you go.
Thanks. I'm going to get up here. So I'm you might call me the white noise in your program. So I don't look, my name again is Mark McCarty. I've been working with the UM system for probably about 3 years, and I still think of myself as a taxpayer in terms of what I do, and I try to think of what the broadband initiative means to the state. And one of the things that struck me as I read through these programs, and you guys have not seen the written materials that came in with this, you will have an opportunity to, but they're really fantastic, very professional. It seemed to me that this kind of mirrors what I view as the role of a land-grant institution, university institution, and university extension. There's a twofold role. It's one, to educate and to develop the knowledge on the campuses, but it's to make that knowledge available to the communities, because that's what it's all about, right? That's the taxpayers are paying for these educational services. There has to be a payback, and that I hope you saw that in these programs that illustrated. The other thing I hope you saw in the programs is every one of these programs is premised on the idea that there's got to be local support. There's a lot of money that you talk about, you can read in the paper, millions and billions of dollars coming in for broadband infrastructure. But the truth is that these funds are going to come in over many, many years. There's going to be a period in which there will be no funds. That we're going to be looking toward that. So one of the things that you should have noticed is there's a lot of community involvement, and there's a view to use the tools that we already have. We have a lot of economic development tools in the state that have been used for projects that really need to be, we need to start thinking about using those for broadband expansion. And we also need to think about, once we build it, are they going to come? And that's the adoption piece. And that's another piece that is critical for the university and for University Extension to be a part of. The last thing I hope you noticed was we had people from everywhere, all over the state. All of our campuses are represented, as well as Extension. And that's really kind of speaks to this whole idea of the broadband initiative, the University Systems Broadband Initiative. This isn't an initiative that is extension-based. It's not an initiative that's university-based. It's really the entire system working together, trying to make a difference and move us forward in this area. And the way we're going to do this through the Broadband Initiative, there's really two things that we're focused on. One is to provide the best resources we can for folks out in the communities that are thinking about doing broadband. And that involves understanding the technology and understanding how you can use different funding options that are available to it. It involves working with the communities and bringing the community together around this task. Because it's not going to happen just with federal money. It's going to involve all of the community working together. So that's really the focus of the Broadband Initiative. What I wanted to bring up here, I'm not going to do all the talking on here. I want to have Justin Crone come up. Justin? Justin, he's a research project analyst for CARES. That's the Center for Applied Research and Engagement Systems. It's a university extension-based system. And he has been involved in one of, at the beginning and all through the process, and what has been really the core asset that the university system has for broadband, and that's the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail, and that's mobroadband.org. If you haven't looked at it, I'm hoping that after you listen to Justin's presentation, you're going to want to take a look at it and see some of the resources that we've got.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Joe, for getting me set up. So, yes, the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail, we developed in partnership from the MU Broadband Initiative with another group at UMKC, SourceLink. And this is kind of aimed to be a one-stop shop for community members, for organizations, for leaders to get all of their broadband-related needs met. So we have data, we have maps, we have the resource planning guide, we have all sorts of different opportunities on here. So I'm just going to kind of do a quick walkthrough of some of the things that are available on the website. And highlight a couple of the tools and functions that we have. Let's see if I can find my mouse. There it is. Okay. So, so a big aspect of the resource rail is the resource navigator, and this is kind of where SourceLink comes in. If you have a need to connect with people in the broadband space, whether you are an ISP or a community or a county government or something else, even individual community members, if you need legal advice regarding broadband implementation or broadband funding, or if you need anything broadband related, the Resource Navigator is built to link those kind of people and organizations together. So you're able to go onto this Resource Navigator and you're able to find resources. You can search by location, you can search within a certain distance, what your needs are. So there's this whole infrastructure built out by SourceLink where you can just go through and connect with different organizations for different needs. So I would encourage anyone in this room or on the live stream, if you are a resource or if you are in need of a resource, to definitely check this out. You can make a resource profile and hopefully get people connected to you. Another important aspect of the site is the Digitally Connected Communities Guide. I'm not going to talk too much about this because that is going to be talked about later. But basically the idea is for the guide for communities to go through and come out with a proposal. And that's kind of proposal in hand to bring broadband into your community. We also have a broadband funding toolkit. This kind of outlines a lot of the different broadband opportunities that exist in the state of Missouri. And then further down is kind of where CARES comes in, where we have some of the data and the maps available for you. So we have a map gallery here, so we have some pre-built maps. Some of these are in story map form, so they have some text available to kind of explain what's going on in the different maps. And then we also have some more starter maps where it just kind of loads up a data layer and you can then kind of explore as you want. Along with the map gallery, we have our map room. And the broadband map room is built on the CARES infrastructure. And here we have a wide variety of data sources and data layers. We have over 30,000 data layers in this map room alone. So you're able to just load in a data layer. You can change, if the data allows it, you can change kind of the geography so you can get much more granular. And you can kind of zoom into places. Maybe you want to go to block group, you want total, and you can just kind of play around with the map room. We have a ton of different data layers on here, not only broadband, but all the different demographic data. We have terrain data, we have education, poverty, all sorts of things. So definitely go through this map room. You can load multiple layers into the map and kind of compare them, contrast them, and there's all sorts of different things that you can do. We also make this very easy to share, so you can just create a custom link and it shares this, whatever's zoomed in on the map. And so someone can just open that link and boom, they have whatever you're looking at. We also understand the need for primary data collection. And so to that end, a lot of you have worked with this site for the speed tests. So we have a speed test survey available where anybody can go in and take a speed test. I'll go ahead and see how the broadband works here. So you can take a speed test, and then we have this quick little survey on the side where you're able to kind of input that information. As soon as this information is input, it populates on this map here. So you're able to kind of zoom in on this map and see individual speed test results. And you can kind of click on points. It's not going to give you an address or a name or anything, but it just kind of tells you what that speed test result was. And you can see we have these results by county as well. So you can kind of get the averages, how many speed tests have been taken, average download, average upload, how many people are indicating that they have no internet service, because that is an option here. You can just put in your address so we can capture some of those no internet service locations. And this is really important for planning purposes, for funding applications, all sorts of things that this speed test results can be used for. And to that end, we also have a community needs assessment. So this is a very handy little tool. We have all sorts of options where you can select a county, you can select a zip code if you would like, census tract. I'm going to do one where we're just going to draw my own custom area. Since we're in Maryville, why don't we do Maryville? So I will just draw a little area around here. And here we have some indicators. I'm just going to do all of our broadband ones. You can expand some of these, see what we have. We have all sorts of things: demographics, income, workforce related, social factors, a lot of different indicators to choose from. So I'm going to run this report for our broadband indicators, and you can see it takes a second for some of these maps and stuff to load, so this will hopefully load. But you can see kind of in this custom area, you can see what the broadband access is. We have breakouts, so we can kind of see what the different access options are. This is by the American Community Survey. So we can scroll down further. We can even see our custom speed test data. So we can see how many tests have been taken in that little area I drew, what the average speeds were, how many had no internet. And then we also have that broken down by census block. So if you are planning or if you are applying for funding, you can see which census blocks have data in your custom area. So this is a really powerful tool. All of that speed test data is getting updated in real time. So after you take a speed test and input your results into the survey, this should automatically update as soon as that is done. And then you're able to go through and we can kind of compare that maybe with our FCC maps. You can see that the FCC says there's 99% access, whereas compared to the American Community Survey, you know, in the custom area that's saying 27%. So that is quite the discrepancy just right there. In the interest of time, I'm going to hand it off. There are a lot of other things on the site. The blog is updated by Mark over here, and he writes a lot of great content for it. We also have a number of news and events that are being updated. And there is a newsletter as well that you're able to subscribe to if you want to get some more updates about broadband in Missouri and some updates on the resource rail itself. So, Mark?
Go ahead and click on the Digital Connected Community Guide. Okay. Back in 2020, when we started this and we were going through COVID, one of the things that we learned early on was that a lot of communities knew about the problem. Okay, that wasn't the issue. They knew they didn't have broadband connection. They knew they didn't have connectivity, but they didn't feel confident that they could get from we don't have broadband connectivity to how do we get to a plan so that we do have broadband connectivity, and how do we use this new asset in a way that makes sense for the community. And that means more than just checking your email or watching YouTube videos. It means using this asset to improve the health and education, economic opportunities in the community. So we thought we had some idea of what we should be doing and how you did that. And the reason why we thought we had some idea of how to do that is because that's really been MU Extension's mission. They interact with communities. They put people together in a way to solve big problems. But we went ahead and we decided to have a workshop in 2020 to go through and get experts from throughout the country to come in and talk to us about what are the key ingredients to developing a broadband plan. And the upshot of that was this digitally connected community guide program. And what it's designed to do is designed to take a group of community stakeholders. It's stakeholder-led. It's not university-led, but it's a group of community stakeholders through a process where they can develop their own written plan for improving broadband connectivity in their community, the access piece, but also the piece that relates to how are we going to use this new asset? How can we help an adoption? How can we help make it affordable for everyone in the community? And you see there's these steps that we take folks through. It's a 15-week program, at least, and it's probably a 15-session program is probably a better way of putting it. But it starts with getting the folks together as a group and as a cohesive group. It's surveying survey tool that you have there that can be used in order to survey the community to learn what the actual connectivity is and how they want to use the asset. Then there's a piece that deals with the technology, that deals with the issue of whether or not we should be doing wireless or whether we should be doing wired technology, fiber technology. What are the issues that ISPs have? There's a segment where we interact with the ISPs in the community. And then finally, we go through a couple of steps where we introduce the idea of this public-private partnership. Not everybody's comfortable with that. You know, it's a different way of doing things. It's a different way of putting folks together, the public sector and the private sector working together to solve a big problem. How do you do that? And then the final step is how do we stay true to ourselves? How do we make sure that we've really walked our talk? How do we measure success in the community? And it's a big deal. It's a big process. It's hard. We decided to do it as a pilot initially, and we're doing that in Northwest Missouri. And so I'm going to step back. I'm the professor, out of my professor role. I'm going to turn this over to Ren Dottie, who is actually, most of the folks around here, of course, know her. She's been with Extension in Nottoway County since 2006, and she worked through this program in the first, our new pilot for the broadband plan. Tell us how it went.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This program was the Digitally Connected Communities Guide was, like you said, they put it together for the stakeholders in the community. They used tools and resources, we had them available. I have to give a lot of credit to Kim Millward and the Regional Council of Governments because they were the ones who actually originally found out about the guide, saw the guide, talked to Joe Lear, and they said, hey, let's do this. I kind of got pulled in a little bit later after actually they signed up and they were going to do it. I was going to be one of the stakeholders is what I was going to be. So I got pulled in as a facilitator to this, to the guide. So the guide, we used the collection of tools with the guide. They had recorded lectures. Marcus was the voice of the lectures, so we got to hear him and got to know him before we got started. So we use those tools to reach these objectives as we went along. So the first thing was defining those stakeholders, and then we had to identify the stakeholders and the community leaders and voices. We had to get buy-in from them. We had to get their ideas. We had to identify those needs within the community and also identify gaps within the community. So the stakeholder team really had to pull together. We had community forums, and we also did surveys through to find these pieces. And then we identified and created partnerships. We talked to ISPs. We interviewed them. And then we created the plan, and Kim was very instrumental on that. In the plan, we defined the process that we're going to go through and also how are we going to measure our successes in these plans. The project in Northwest Missouri with the 5 counties was actually funded by a CARES Act recovery grant through the EDA. And here's a list of our community partners. We had the Regional Council of Governments staff in there. Kim Millward was the project leader. She was really the driver of this project, and we couldn't have gotten through it as fast as we did without her. University of Missouri Extension, Denise Ferguson, who's sitting over here, and I were both facilitators in the project, so we kind of filled everybody's inboxes. I think that must be a thing with broadband, is we just keep everybody's inboxes full, keep pushing them forward, made sure they knew what their assignment was for the week, and lots of reminders. Also, talking to media, sending out press releases. The guide was really useful because it already had a lot of those things created. They had letters created, they had emails already created, and so we just had to personalize it to our community group. And then our local economic developers. I see Mackenzie sitting back here. She was from Gentry County. We also had Monica Bailey from Atchison County, Marcus Cassidy from Holt County, Megan Brown and Kevin Fisher from Worth County, and Josh McKim from Nottoway County. So all of us came together as community partners as a group to put all these pieces together as we went along. And the guide just really put it together step by step. They said, here's the next thing to do, here's the next thing to do. We kept all those pieces, and then all of them got put into the guide. The process, the first thing we had to do was develop a vision. Next, we had to do the outreach and engagement, which included reaching out to our press, reaching out to newspapers, radios. We also had community forums, and where we invited the public to come in and tell us their thoughts about broadband in their communities. And also the surveys and for businesses and for individuals were part of that. Then we had to match our needs with internet technology and infrastructure. So where we, talked to ISPs, we examined what opportunities we had. And then developing a public-private partnership strategy, and then following through, which that follow-through is going to be an ongoing process. So I wanted to share with you the community vision. This actually came to be in two pieces. Sentence we put together as like the second session of digitally connected communities, and the second portion came after our community forums when we noticed that there was another need. So it's to create a Northwest Missouri where all residents and businesses have access to reliable and affordable broadband to meet their daily needs regardless of where they have access to the digital network. In addition, provide support and education to assist those who need it and increase the adoption of this technology to improve daily lives. The community forums, we had 5 of them within the region, 1 in each county, and the community stakeholders in each of those counties were really instrumental in planning and inviting people in their communities to come. We had a good attendance in all of them. Good conversation. Each one had a different topic that we focused on. But the underlying, there's different conversation, but there was an underlying theme that came at the end of each one, and it's adoption. So we really think that, we have great ISPs up here in Northwest Missouri who are working very hard. The ISPs also attended every one of the forums, so we had ISP representation. But they're working really hard. They know that there's holes, they know there are gaps, and they're doing their best to try to figure out how to get there. But the adoption was the biggest thing they saw. The adoption is the thing that our community saw, whether it's a person who doesn't know how to even doesn't have access to a technology to have a doctor's appointment, or whether a farmer wants to use precision ag and needs connectivity in their field and they can't get it. One example was at Graves Chapel Farm out by I-29 over in Atchison County. They don't have internet. They didn't have good internet access out there, and so they couldn't demonstrate some of the precision ag things that they needed to be able to be on the cutting edge and to educate farmers. Lots of different things came out of those. The notes from all those forums are all in our community plan, our broadband plan, so you can definitely go and look at all those notes. The survey was another piece of it. We had speed tests as part of the survey, and at those community forums, we released those surveys and we promoted them. And then we continued for 6 weeks gathering responses. We had responses from over 250 separate locations, but I just pulled a couple different things out of it. One of the current local needs recommendation is 100 megabits per second. And over 60% of those speed tests were below 25 megabytes per second. So I didn't have a correlation of if those were all fiber or if they were all different types, but that's just kind of and that's going to be a need as we move forward, because households who might have kids on different devices and mom and dad are trying to have Zoom meetings for work, it's not going to work if we're under 225, especially going forward. Also, 43% of the surveyed residents said they would pay $51 to $80 for adequate internet service. And I think that's very important going forward to note what people are willing to pay, because that comes with affordability. We also had to identify physical resources, and that was something we partnered with CARES on. I didn't put the map in here, but because it's just dots on a map of the 5 counties. But we had to identify potential easements, we've identified cell towers and water towers, ways that we could possibly partner to help to grow broadband. So this is the cover. Oh, I didn't hit forward. Okay. A written plan. Kim Millward, once again, was a rock star on this. This is her field, so she likes to write plans. But we kind of walked along with her, helped her out. I know Joe and her had a lot of conversations about interpreting data. But this is the plan. It was officially released in beginning of August to the committee, but it is available and published on the Northwest Regional Council of Governments Economic Development page. And I believe that there's a link, a QR code on the back of your agenda to access it directly. But it's over 200 pages. We have a lot of appendices. The surveys in there, the economic benefit is in all of them. All of those reports are in there. So this is going to be used going forward. Kim's already using it with ISPs as they're looking at new grant funding. They're going to be able to pull pieces of that information out and just use it right away. It's really kind of put our communities in a position where they can apply quickly, and that they are going to be in the forefront, hopefully, in some of that those broadband funding. And once again, here's the resource rail snapshot of that. If you want to learn more about creating digitally connected communities in the guide and the course, you can view some information on there. You can contact Joe Lear if you're interested in that in your community. There's also an email address. It's info@mobroadband.org. And I believe there's an application on there too. So you can just go ahead and apply if you're interested in this. We were a pilot project up here, so I know we've been passing a lot of notes on to Mark, and we've been talking about how we can make things better, what would be easier. So I'm excited to go forward and see what other communities can do with this too. So.
Thank you, Randa. It's always good to hear how things work, and I want to emphasize this is not something that's going to remain static. It grows. We learn, right? That's the whole point of a university, is we get smarter as we go along and we do more. Last speaker here is B.J. Tanksley. And B.J., I don't think he's the head of Missouri State Broadband Office. He's a director. He started in January. I was thinking about that. I can't believe you just started in January. Since then, he's been, basically doing triple duty, working with the legislature on a lot of new exciting funding programs and planning for the IIJA, which is coming along. So tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you to the teams that took part in this. I hope everybody else that said that too. That was incredible. Thank you for the work you put into it. Working through judging those, it was clear every one of you put a lot of work into what you did. I thought it was really exciting to see young people, young up-and-coming professionals take on an issue that is very important. Everybody in this room knows this, or you wouldn't be spending your Saturday morning sitting in this room when it's so beautiful outside talking about broadband. But this is a huge issue, and that's why we're all here. And it was really neat to see young people getting plugged in and trying to look at new ways to tackle this. So it was really exciting. My name is B.J. Tanksley. Thanks for saying a few words. Hopefully I've met most of you in this room, but have been in this role since January, so about 7 months at this point, and still, I use it too much, but still just as excited as I was when I came here. and really came to the office because we really are at an amazing time. Because of federal funding made available and coming through the state, so the federal partners being a big part of that, as well as our legislators who are represented here also allowing us to move forward with these opportunities, we really have a chance to take some big strides in this area. These are big issues. They take a lot of money. I don't want us to become numb to that, but at the same time, we're going to talk about some big numbers coming. But it's because this stuff is expensive. If it wasn't, it probably would be in a lot more places than it is. So it is going to take a lot to get this work done. I'm going to try not to overwhelm you with what's coming, but want to just I'm going to start with summarizing that we have an amazing opportunity coming most immediately that has almost already started, and then we have another opportunity coming. So we really have two opportunities that over the next approximately 8 years are going to bring federal funds through the state opportunities to really try to make some amazing strides in bringing broadband service to Missourians. When you look at the problem, Missouri did a gap analysis that was wrapped up in the spring, and we will be promoting soon. We've kind of previewed some of that. Showed between 400,000 and 500,000 unserved or underserved locations. That may not sound like a big number, but it is a big number, and those that are unserved are those that probably cost the most to reach. So we have a big issue to try to tackle. In that report, it estimated the problem at about $2 billion to bring service to those locations. So a lot of money and really a lot of opportunities to get that done. Let's start talking about some of the opportunities in front of us. Everybody knows ARPA. You've seen the acronym for everywhere you look at this point. The legislature worked through the process and ended up, and this is where we ended up with legislative funding coming through the ARPA program, and it's $265 million in a broadband infrastructure grant program, and then $20 million for our cell towers grant program, and then $10 million for building capacity of our office. Tim Arbeiter, who held my position for a few years before I came here, did an amazing job. But in order to take this on, we wouldn't be able to do so with just one person, and so they actually gave us some funding to build our team. I'm happy to say we are at 8 now. We'll be at 10 by the 1st of September. We have a few more positions available. If anybody's looking for jobs or knows somebody, we're looking for some grants team members to help finish out this team. We're excited to do so. The other thing that capacity building part does is allows us to bring on outside expertise to help us with these programs. One of the main things we are looking to kick off, and we should be starting that process in September, is to do a statewide address level mapping effort. You've heard the words mapping talked about in probably every presentation and in a lot of conversations when it comes to broadband. Is one of the hardest things is where is it and where is it not? It's hard to say what is the size of the problem if you can't actually define it, and so we're going to take that on through a third-party vendor working with people that know how to do this work and really be able to eventually have a map where you can say, yes, this household has it, yes, this business does, and then who doesn't. So that's a big part of that capacity building as well. The biggest piece that we have coming now is our broadband infrastructure grant program. I do not expect you to read all this, but we are going to implement this. This is open for applications now. We opened August 15th. They will run through September 29th. And that puts us on a timeline to announce awards in mid-December. So we'll announce awards in mid-December and then start getting that funding out in early 2023. Looking to partner with internet service providers to bring service to areas that does not have it. This is largely funded through capital projects funds as well as state and local fiscal recovery funds. They all have kind of their own guidelines, but this is going to bring service at the level of 100 by 100. So we're talking about quality service here. It does not matter what type of service it is, meaning wireless or fiber or other types of technology, but it has to be quality service. There's a little carve out there that if someone could make the case that they can't bring 100 by 100 today, they have to at least bring 100 by 20 and prove that that is scalable technology to 100 by 100. I talked a little bit we've also kicked out some new program resources, so as people prepare for these grants, on the ded.mo.gov/ARPA, and that will pop up here in just a second. We have a new broadband availability map. This is showing where awards were announced. The data behind this map is so large that it doesn't show up when you zoom out to this level, but you can see a representation of where there have been awards leaded by the federal government. A lot of that is RDOF and others. The other thing we put together is a community identifier map. The community identifier map is, I think it's on my next slide, is right there. Capital projects funds, the part of ARPA that it is, allows for broadband, but it says you should focus on areas of need, communities of need. And so we have put this together to help potential applicants to look at that. The good thing is for our program is a lot of the state qualifies as areas of need. This is based off of income levels, long-term poverty rates, and other things. So the good thing for the state and our program is a lot of areas do qualify. The bad thing for the state is a lot of our areas could use these services or also qualify. And then this is the timeline of our program. As you can see, there's a lot of steps here, but ending with grants being announced in mid-December. There's a lot of steps in that. The one thing I want to say through our program, a lot of people say, well, can it work here? Can it work there? We largely put that on the providers and the communities. If it's an area that a provider thinks is unserved, we want them to submit a project, and then we will prove that out through what Missouri has always done, which is a challenge process, which means another provider could then come and say, no, I already served that, or I have an award to serve that soon, and then we prove that out. We don't want to fund overbuilding, but we also want to be flexible enough to allow the program to work and allow it to work and to make sure that people do end up ultimately being served. That is the goal. Another major point of this is community involvement is huge by capital projects funds and for our office. We want to support projects that communities are supportive of, and therefore we want to see that. We're doing bonus points for counties or municipalities that are giving to projects, and we also want to see letters of support from leaders in the community, homeowners and others to say this is a project of interest to our area and this is why it's important to us. So that's what we're doing with the ARPA funds. Coming soon is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funds. I shouldn't actually say coming too soon. They actually have kind of already started. We submitted our applications for the Digital Equity Act in July, and Monday we submitted our Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Act application, which is known as BEAD, because that's a lot to say at once, but these offer significant funding for the state of Missouri. We're very excited to take part in both of these opportunities, and community involvement is, you're going to hear me say it probably too many times, but is a major part of this effort as well. So what you'll see coming soon, let's click to the DEA, Digital Equity Act, a large amount of funds, starts with a planning effort, probably eventually brings the state somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 to $25 million in digital equity work. When I say digital equity, that's talking about things like affordable devices, affordability of the internet, digital literacy training, and others. I think one of our teams talked about computer labs to try to increase that adoption side, trying to make sure that not only are we bringing access, but we're also bringing citizens the tools to fully engage. It's true, our office is a part of the Department of Economic Development, and I think that's the right fit because we're not just here to bring internet access, we want to make sure that everyone can fully engage in the current economy, and that's a big part of also taking part in that digital equity part of the conversation. And then the BEAD program promises a large tranche of funding. I won't go through the whole steps of it. In short, the FCC is building new maps. They will determine the need of the state. They will put that over the top of the need of the entire nation, and that will determine the funding overall. In short, It's a lot of money. It's probably at least twice what we're going to spend through ARPA funds. So we're talking 500 plus, probably much bigger than that. And it's going to go out through a competitive grant round where we target funding to that updated map of places where locations are unserved. So we're going to have a great opportunity with BEAD in front of us. But what you see in the beginning of both of those slides is a planning period. And that's what our office is getting ready to kick off this fall, and we're very excited about doing so. We're going to be working with partners like the Regional Planning Commissions and the University of Missouri. You've seen some of the work that they've done right here in Northwest Missouri. I think it's a model for what we can do around the state and really help communities address their needs. Let them take the ownership of it and then use our opportunities to really build from there. There's been great work done here. We want to recognize it and we want to partner in a similar fashion. What we're going to do this fall is going to go at the regional planning commission level and visit all the regional planning commissions and then do continued engagement with them through the winter and a follow-up meeting in the spring as we build towards our initial proposal for both of those funding efforts. We're very excited to take this on, but I'm excited to also partner with great partners in that effort who know this, who can add intelligence and experience to our team and really help us engage at the local level so that people can tell us. I was talking to a reporter just yesterday and they go, well, what do you mean? You have a map that shows where broadband's available. And I said, yeah, but that map is drawn in big circles or squares or polygons. It doesn't tell me what each individual has. We want to have meetings like this with communities where people say, no, my street doesn't have it, or this or that, and actually prove to us what people are seeing on the ground. I don't think we'll be surprised by what we hear, but we need to have that evidence as we build that final plan. So super excited about what we're doing there. And that's where you can go to see all the updates from our office. Most of our efforts right now are focused on the ARPA effort, but you will also see Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act information there. That's ded.mo.gov/ARPA. Our office does host a monthly webinar. We do an end of the month webinar on our broadband efforts and then a first of the month all things ARPA. So you can go there, sign up for updates and get logged into those. I kind of do a full effort, like a 20-ish minutes on the end of the month and then kind of do an abbreviated part as part of our overall ARPA efforts the next week. So you get 2 opportunities to hear from me because who wouldn't want more of that? But really, honestly, I know there's a lot of acronyms in there. I know there's a lot of numbers and it can lead to people glazing over. But we know that there's a lot of unserved people out there. But the exciting part is we really have an opportunity. And I don't want to overpromise. I'm not going to say we're going to get it to every single location, but we have a real opportunity over the next 8 years to really make a difference in this area and really help fund some awesome projects. And I also want to say this doesn't happen without awesome providers. None of this is fully funded by us. I think we should all keep that in mind. It also takes a willing provider, and we have some of those in this room that are willing to go make that service available. So we want to work with them to help bridge this gap and help everybody engage in the economy. So thank you for giving me a few minutes. I don't know who comes next, but I think that ends my part.
Here at the Gateway to the West, take any city street, country road, or inner.
Thanks, BJ. Well, why don't we find out who won? Kim, Bill, can you come up? She's what? Right behind us.
So I would say good morning, but I think we're pushing afternoon. So good afternoon, good morning. I'm going to delay the announcement just a little bit longer because I have a lot of people I need to thank as well. So we will go through that and then we will have our announcements. And I will try to be as short as I can, but definitely want to make sure that I recognize some people. So first of all, thank you to the University of Missouri Extension, who without them today, everything that you've heard about and seen for Northwest Missouri would not have been possible. I cannot express how much I am thankful for Randa, Denise, and Joe, and Alan Spell, and Allison Copeland for helping us put together things with the digitally connected communities in this event today. And then again, a special thank you to the MU system and to Anthony and to Marcus for your roles in this as well. So without it, it wouldn't have been possible. Thank you again to our judges today, Hank Niederhelm and Jeff Simon. BJ Tanksley, BJ, thank you so much for coming up here. I know that you have been busy. You started about the time we started broadband planning in Northwest Missouri, and you've stood up in office and worked on grants to get that ARPA money out. And so I'm immensely grateful that you came up here, and I'm very thankful that we get to work together in the next year. And then Randy Rail's back. Just like Ty, I've got to say, he took a chance on me 20-some years ago, and I don't think he thought that I would be standing in this role today. He actually hired me for workforce development, and we sailed then, and we're sailing now, right? So immensely grateful. And then I would like to thank our sponsors for today. The H&R Block Foundation, thank you for helping with the travel costs and the rooms and the prize money for the students that they're going to win today. And then thank you to Northwest Missouri State University, Dr. Green. Without them, we would not have had the live stream option today from KNWT. And there is one staff member, Will Murphy, who helped us with this, but then also a student crew that's here today. And so that's really important when we talk about this event, that we acknowledge that also the crew that helped provide the live stream today is doing some real world learning at the same time and lifelong learning. So I am thankful for that. And I forgot to also mention from the university system staff, Ben Gruber, the intern who helped put this together. Then I need to thank my planning team, Josh McKim, Monica Bailey, Marcus Cassidy, Mackenzie Manring, Megan Brown, Kylie Walker, Annette Deering, Debbie Bennett, and Kevin Fisher, who started this planning process with me in January, and we did everything literally by Zoom. And so over 5 months, we did 9 meetings about every other week and worked our way through this curriculum. And I'll tell you, it wasn't always easy, but we made it work, and we all learned a lot about broadband. I think infinitely our knowledge of broadband went up, and so we're very grateful to all of our providers that help us provide broadband in the region. Justin Crone with CARES, who did our analysis as well, thankful for him. And then the city of Maryville, who donated this beautiful facility. Thank you to Ty for coming out and doing the welcome. Greg and Ryan from the city staff, as well as Allison and Amanda here at the conference center, who helped really make this event run like it has today. And then with that, I need to thank my boss, Jerry Dearmont, who is not here, and Steve Houts, who also were on this trip with me. And if I forgot anybody, I am sorry. So with that, we will have our award winners. So in third place, winning $500 is team number 3. If you would please come up here. Thank you. And this is the team that had an additional challenge, and I think you handled it really well, having 2 of your members on Zoom have to participate in their presentation. And initially, we only had 1 student who was going to participate by Zoom. So it became even more complex when we found out yesterday that we were going to have 2 by Zoom. And I'll let you introduce yourself, which campus you're from, and what your field of study is.
I'm from Missouri S&T. I'm undergoing Masters in Computer Science.
Hi, once again, I'm Tarun, and I'm doing my Master's in Computer Science, and I'm from MST Rolla.
My name is Emily Moyer. I'm from UMKC, and I'm studying business administration with an emphasis in entrepreneurship.
And are 2 on Zoom yet? Okay, we will celebrate with them hopefully shortly. We'll give them a call. If you guys would like to take this, we will take a picture. Is that okay? Just kind of as a reminder, when we started doing this, there were certain rules that they had because the judges were here on site, some of us last night as well. So we do not know, past the student's first name, anything about the teams. We don't know which campus they're from, what area they're studying, even which team they were necessarily on. So as we kind of interacted, we came back. I will tell you that I was very impressed with all three teams and the plans they put together and the presentations we had here today. And between second and first was very close, like first just barely edged out the second place team. So I wanted to mention that because I am thankful for all of you for participating in this competition, because without that we wouldn't have had plans. And much of what you guys have is going to enhance the broadband plan that we have now, which is scheduled for an update already. It was just released in August, but because of these plans and some other things that are going on in Missouri, we're going to have a September update. So I'll be talking to the teams about inclusion of their pieces in our plan. With that, our second place team is team number 2. Be loud. But
hi, I'm Ankit. Again, I'm a PhD student majoring in engineering management at Missouri S&T, and I work with Dr. Casey Canfield, who may be a very familiar name with a lot of people in this room.
Hi, my name is Tara. I'm a student at UMKC studying electrical engineering undergrad.
Hi, my name is Cliff Holly. I'm pursuing my JD at UMKC right now. I also have an MBA from there as well.
My name is Alicia Bushkoff. I am a Master of Computer Science student at UMSL, University of Missouri St. Louis.
and we can take your guys' picture after as well. Congratulations. I think it was very considerate of us, our teams, to at least, if they were going to place in reverse order, because we knew there was many combinations of how this could go today, and trying to make sure that this matches what we have when we don't have an Academy Awards or Emmys moment is extremely important. But with that, our first place team is team number 1. And so again, I will remind you that we didn't know anything about the students except for their names when we were doing the judging, because I am proud to announce, I believe there is a Bearcat among this team. So,
what's a Bearcat always?
That's right. Bleed green every day.
That's right. My name is Daniel Foose. I am going to my last year of law school at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and I'm proud to be green, a Bearcat alumni.
John Welch, UMKC in the Comp Sci program, doing what is now a 40-year undergrad degree.
I'm Sophia Hadley. I'm at UMKC's law school, and this project was a joy.
And with that, our awards part of today is concluded, but I have one last final thank you. Thank you to all of you who came out today to support the teams and to support this competition and to listen to what's going on with broadband in Northwest Missouri. As BJ alluded to, it's going to be at the community level that we get this done. And so I'm very grateful for all of you for taking out a Saturday, because time is precious. And we know that weekends are even more precious, right? So with that, I'm going to let you guys start on the reception part. We are going to debrief the teams real quickly. I think we're doing that at 1 o'clock. So you got 45 minutes to celebrate and take pictures, okay? Thank you.